where we don't have a chair tonight. Our former chair is absent from the meeting. I don't know if you saw my email, but we'll need to just temporarily elect a chair to run the first couple of items, and then once we have our new chair selected, they can take over the meeting. So we'll let the commission proceed.
We nominate the new chair right now.
Yes. Well,
we have a quorum.
I mean, they don't have to elect a chair to elect a chair. If they want to, just
go to the...
What they would just need is to follow the bylaws in selecting a new chair.
Yeah.
So
you
they
can just
collectively
make nominations and then vote, and if we get a majority vote for the chair, and then we'll do the co-chair
Right.
after that.
Okay. All right. Well, I would like to nominate for chair Commissioner Iyer.
Yeah. I'm just trying to
Error.
think. We do need to gavel in the meeting and begin.
All right, I'd like to nominate Ken as a temporary chair for this meeting.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, temporary chair, call us to order.
All right. Well, okay. Here we go. Can I have the gavel?
Please, by all means.
With
The
great
gavel
power
that we
comes
bought as a
great
joke years ago
responsibility.
that has never left the stage.
Go. If we're going to do this, let's do it. All right. I'll call this meeting to order for Lehi Planning Commission on January 8th, 2026. First order of business would be nomination for a chair. Any nominations for a chair for this next coming year?
Acting Commissioner, I would like to put forward that I would like to nominate Commissioner Tyson Ayer. Yeah.
I'll second.
We have a first, and we have a nomination and a second for Commissioner Ayer to be the chair. This could be a fun year if we have Ayer as the chair for the 2026 season.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Voting is
Okay,
unanimous.
well, let's move on.
Very good. Here's the gavel back.
Yeah.
We need a vice chair.
I would like to put forward a nomination for Commissioner Nicole Coons as vice chair.
It's Coonsy. Just,
Apologies. Apologies.
It's
Coonsy.
okay. It's
Thank
totally
you.
fine.
Two difficult names to say.
Yeah, sorry.
Perfect.
I'd like to second that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Fire and Coons.
Item 3, we have decided to put to the end of the meeting.
Yeah, if you're okay, there's so many other items. This isn't a priority. We can do it at the end, and if it gets late and you want, we'll just defer. You could still adopt the bylaws later in the meeting, and we can still do a training in February. So but yeah, for now, we would ask that item be moved to the end of the agenda.
And
So moved.
Mr. Chair, just so you know, Kim and I looked at the bylaws as well as the code. You're not required to adopt those at the first meeting. They just need to be adopted and updated.
That being said, do we need a motion to move that to the end of the meeting?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it by motion.
I would like to make a motion that we move item 3.1 to the end of the meeting.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Turn the time over to Brittany.
So item 4.7 has asked to be tabled. I just want to make note of that at the beginning.
And Brittany, if we could have that be postponed instead of tabled, because if we table it, then it'll have to be brought back at a different meeting. So if we can just postpone it to a certain date.
I don't think they had a specific date they wanted it to come back to. So does that?
They can
make a
postpone it
difference?
to a date to which you can give a time frame, say within the next 2 months, or it'll come back and they can postpone it further.
That's the HADCO office, right?
Noted. I'll take a motion to postpone item 4.7.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we, on item 4.7, public hearing and consideration of JDH Development's request for approval of the HADCO HQ concept plan located at 1450 West, 1850 North be postponed in the next 2 months?
Sure, or a time, but I would also recommend, I don't know if there's anyone here to speak on that item, but it is a public hearing item. So if you want to open public hearing, you can. That way individuals that are here today can be heard on that item and wouldn't have to come back at the next one unless they wanted to.
Should we do that when it comes up in the agenda, or now?
You can do it now as well if it's just going to be short.
Is there anybody here that's here for item 4.7 that would like to speak? Seeing none.
And then, yeah, so if you want to open public hearing, you can on that, or we can just postpone it and then have public hearing on that.
Save the public hearing for the actual agenda.
So do I need to change my motion?
Just
2 months?
Just postpone.
Postpone for,
Or the next, when they're available within
When-
the next 2 months, and
okay.
then we'll notice it. And
postpone until they're available.
Second.
Bring the action again.
Motion and a second by Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now, Brittany.
Thank you. All right, item 4.1, public hearing in consideration of Joseph Lambert's request for approval of the Sando-Hana concept plan located at 2727 Sandalwood Drive in the TOD zone and requesting an exception to the architectural requirements and a reduction in the number of required parking spaces. So, this is the parcel located next to the Sanctuary Apartments. Their proposed layout. Did I exit out of the proposed layout? I might have. It is just this large indoor volleyball center, and it so kind of would front down here and have the sides. So there's internal roads that would go along the kind of west side of the building, we'll call it, and south. And so for the design, it falls in both the TOD design requirements, which requires 50% of the front be glass. It also is in the urban tech mixed use design district, which requires 40% glass on all the facades that face a street. So that would include the front and the two side elevations. They obviously exceed the 50% in the front, but we're unable to meet the 40% on the sides. And they provided a narrative explaining why that was hard, including, that for the use of volleyball, it shine a lot of light in, make it hard to see. So they're just asking for the exception to that, as well as a little bit of a reduction in the parking spaces, which is allowed with the TOD to have a little bit less. But with that, I'll turn it back to the commission for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the number for the reduction in parking spaces. What is that?
I need to pull that up too.
Okay, and while Brittany's pulling that up, I'm noticing that there are a substantial amount of DRC comments here. It seems like there's quite a few exceptions they're trying to get around. It's not just parking, and I don't know. Is this an issue? Is this something we should really be concerned with?
Yeah, we did decide to send this forward. Normally they are going to need to come back to DRC to resolve some of the other technical issues. A lot of those are utilities and things, but I think they wanted some level of comfort that you would be willing to entertain the exceptions first before they resubmitted. So the items that Brittany's presented are the main issues that you would need to decide on, and then depending on the outcome, they would resubmit, and we'd have them probably go through one, maybe even 2 or 3 more iterations with the DRC to work through all of those. You know, a lot of them are more technical utility things. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Good point, though. Yeah, usually we try to not send things forward unless there's about 10 or less comments, so that we're pretty confident that everything else has been worked out. But this one, these are pretty major. You know, if you decide you don't want to grant the exceptions, it will change their layout. So.
Yeah, so with the parking, I guess it depends on a little bit on how you calculate it. So they're saying it's either 300 or 180, depending on how you calculate it. And if you did a 50% reduction, which is allowed by the TOD, then you would get to 150 or 90.
And how many are they proposing?
They're proposing 150. And yeah, they had Focus do a parking study and said that 150 should be sufficient for it.
Any other questions for staff?
Not right now.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Invite the public to come that would like to speak. Applicant, is the applicant present? Please come forward. State your name and tell us anything that we didn't hear.
Pull the microphone up to you. Sorry, thanks.
Joseph Lambert, and we have, and I don't know, Brittany, if you had the rear elevation. So the rear elevation had a lot of glass. We're trying to compensate for the lack of, or the exemption we're kind of requesting on the 2 sides and supplementing with additional glass on the opposite 2 sides. The crux is we kind of have streets on all 4 sides, so that's why we're here, because, you know, to Brittany and the rest of the staff that we've talked at the DRC, there are some items that we're working through, but these are kind of hard stop kind of items. You know, if it doesn't work, then we might have to reconfigure or maybe abandon the project. So that's why we're here.
I have a question. It says opaque glazing, so those aren't windows on the sides. They're
Yeah, so that was what the architect came up with, because we don't want direct light to come through. So we were still trying to get the look of some glass over on those perimeters without allowing kind of that fresh light coming in to potentially, you know, have an impact on the use. So opaque, not transparent, I guess.
gotcha.
I'm totally okay with the reduction in windows. That's not an issue for me. But the parking, I think, could be an issue. I've been to the Sandbar in Northern Salt Lake, and they have very little parking for a similar facility.
They only had 47 parking stalls, so we're looking at tripling that.
Okay.
With the same number of courts.
Brittany mentioned that you did a study on the number of parking and that 150 was the number that came out. Can you just tell me a little bit about that study?
So they went through and compared comparable areas, and as well as looked at it from 2, and again, not my area of expertise, but 2 different avenues to see what would be applicable or kind of by the parking codes. So that was the number he came up with. We were kind of going on the 300, which was what the DRC recommended. So that's why we kind of, you know, with the 50% reduction, I think on site we could fit close to 150, and then now we would be talking to one of the neighbors to potentially use. But again, asking for 10 additional stalls versus 160 extra stalls, you know, that's a big conversation point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Have you already had those conversations with your neighbors?
So SALT said that we could work something out, but again, we don't know the numbers, so that's kind of what, and then compensation, you know, was kind of what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. No more questions for me.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, stay close just in case.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, this is a public hearing. Is anybody here that would like to speak to item 4.1? Seeing a mad rush to the stand, we'll close public hearing and bring it back to the commission. I have a question before we jump into that too much. I know that this is a situation where there are two overlays, right? There are two, I guess, design overlays here, districts here. This one where they are essentially going in the same direction, but what if they were in opposite directions? What if we had a design that said they have to have this certain amount of glass, but then another design that says they can't have that much glass? Like, if they were opposed, in opposing directions, how would that be handled?
Yeah, the development code says whatever you would consider the most restrictive would be the one that would apply. So
Okay.
probably in this case, the TOD is a little bit
Okay.
more restrictive, or, you know, it requires a higher percentage of glass, for example. So yeah, if there's a conflict, it would go with the most restrictive.
I mean, I know in this case, both of them are going in the same direction.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, that's a good question.
augmenting. I was just curious.
Yep.
Any other questions for staff or discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Let's make a motion. Chair, may I make a motion?
Yes, you may.
On item 4.1, public hearing and consideration of Joseph Lambert's request for approval of the Sand Ohana concept plan located at 2727 Sandalwood Drive in the TOD zone, and requesting an exception to the architectural requirements and reduction in the number of required parking spaces. I move that we approve the request with the glass being reduced, as they have put more glass on both ends of the building, and also that the parking spaces fits the TOD zone according to their study.
Can I suggest that we include all DRC comments, that they have to work through those?
That is a wonderful suggestion. Please add that to my motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor? All right. 4.2. Press. You're good.
Item 4.2, public hearing in consideration of Gardner Company's request for approval of the Skyview East Plat Amendment, adding 10, it says 10, but there should be 13 lots at approximately Timpanogos Highway and Center Street. Yeah, so it actually is 13. And they previously did another plat. This is just coming back to further subdivide it into different lots. This is all commercial. And so the plans for the buildings, the infrastructure will come with future site plans. This is just the legal subdividing of the property. And with that, I'll turn it back to the commission for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Is the applicant present?
Good evening. My name is Chase Peterson. I'm with the Gardner Company, and first off, just want to thank staff for all you guys are doing. We're very grateful and know that this is a big project, so thank you. This is pretty straightforward, and like you said, we're really just trying to subdivide these properties so each building has their own lot. And if it wasn't clear, there's 10 on this east side of the project and then 3 other lots on the west side of the project.
Because you're doing a similar thing on the west side of the project, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. This is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak to item 4.2, the come hop forward. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and turn it back to the commission.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. Sorry, were you ready?
Nope. Yours
Okay.
would be better.
No, I doubt it. Item 4.2, public hearing and consideration of Gardner Company's request for approval of the Skyview East Plat Amendment, adding 13. Can I correct that because it says 10? Okay, 13 lots at approximately Timpanogos Highway and Center Street. I move that we give approval for for this request, and with the findings that the proposed subdivision is a legal subdividing of land and does not include any improvements, the proposed subdivision meets the requirements of the development code, and please include all DRC comments.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you. 4.3.
Item 4.3, public hearing and consideration of Gardner Company's request for approval of the Skyview West plat amendment, adding 2 lots at approximately Tipnogus Highway and Center Street. This is the exact same thing, just on the other side of Center Street. So this is where the Target's coming in on the bigger parcel over here and just dividing some of the front parcels. Same thing, just a legal subdivision. Plans will come with a future site plan. That I'll turn it back to the commission for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Applicant, anything to add? All right. This is a public hearing. Does anybody, as we'll open the public hearing, does anybody have anything to say to item 4.3? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and turn it back to the commission.
Mr. Commissioner, I'll put forward a motion that we approve item 4.3, public hearing and consideration of Gardner Company's request for approval of the Skyview West plot amendment, adding 2 lots at approximately Tipnogus Highway and Center Street, with the findings that the proposed subdivision is a legal subdividing of land, and that it does meet the requirements of the development code. Let's see if there's any DRC comments. There is one. Please include that.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Brittany, item 4.4.
4.4, public hearing and consideration of Gardner Company's request for approval of the primary children's plat amendment, adding an additional lot for the Children's Center of Utah located at Miller Campus Drive and Waterbury Drive. So this is another similar thing, just dividing off this separate lot, almost an acre from the rest of primary children, so that the Children's Center can have their own parcel. And with that, I'll turn it back to the commission for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Is there a building there now? Is there construction going on right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they do an approved site plan.
All right. Is the applicant present? Anything you'd like to add?
Unless you guys have any questions.
Pull up the chair.
Okay. All right. That being said, this is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak to item 4.4, now is your time to do so. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and turn it back to the commission.
Is it my turn to take a stab at making a motion? Okay,
You're
I'm
welcome
probably
to.
going to bungle this, so help me through it. Mr. Chair, motion that we approve item 4.4, public hearing and consideration of Gardner Company's request for approval of the primary children's plat amendment, adding an additional lot for the Children's Center of Utah located at Miller Campus Drive and Waterbury Drive. Finding that this does meet the requirements of the development code and include any DRC comments if there are. Which I don't think there are.
I didn't hear, did you say approve or deny?
Approve.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Just making sure.
It's always
second
good
it.
to check.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. 4.5, coming along. Let's keep this going, I'm sure that these people don't want to say anything, so we'll just keep going.
Item 4.5, public hearing in consideration of Brian Blatter's request for approval of the Levin subdivision plat amendment, consolidating 2 lots back to one located at 627 West, 1200 North. So in 2022, there was a flag lot and a 2-lot subdivision that was approved that divided this into 2 lots. The applicant now wants to combine those 2 parcels back together to build a garage. You can't have a accessory structure without a home, so to build a garage on it, it needs to be back into one lot. So putting it back, it'll still meet the requirements of the R1 flex zone. With that, I'll turn it to the commission for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Is the application, or is the applicant present?
Yeah, I'm Brian Blotter. Just as you said, yeah, we had that split into two lots and looking to build a garage there. So combine it back into one. In the future, we'll potentially probably do the same thing, split it back up when we build a home on that second lot. So, any questions?
Any questions for the applicant? No, thank you. This is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak to item 4.5, this is your time. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. I will say we don't see these very often, right? This is a little unique for us, but I'll turn it back to the commission.
All right.
Is that me? I'll go ahead and put forward a motion that we approve item 4.5, public hearing and consideration of Brian Blotter's request for approval of the 11 subdivision plot amendment, consolidating 2 lots back to 1, located at 627 West, 1200 North, with the findings that the proposed subdivision does meet the requirements of the development code, and please include the few DRC comments that are there.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. You're good to go.
Enjoy the garage.
Item 4.6.
Item 4.6, public hearing and consideration of Gary Knapp's request for approval of the Rockwell Station concept plan for an office building located at 200 West Main Street. Let me pull this up so you can see what we're looking at. So this is located Main 200 West. This is Lehi Bakery, if that helps you kind of get your bearings for it. So proposed office building. The footprint is about 7,200 square feet, and it would be 3 stories. The proposed elevations are glass and brick, so they appear like they'd meet the historic design district requirements, though full review of that would happen with the site plan. The biggest concern from DRC during review was that there's no proposed parking on the site. This is zone mixed use and part of the historic district, so the code says that there's no minimum parking requirement, but that the planning commission should consider what would normally be required, which is 1 stall for 300 square feet for office, which would be 72 parking spots. The applicant has been talking to the city about leasing 30 spaces from the Legacy Center overflow, which would be down off up here. So a little bit of a walk. And the goal of the Main Street area is to not provide a lot of parking throughout, but kind of to consolidate it and share the parking. One thing we realized, if we had like a parking and payment in lieu for parking or something, that would be helpful in a situation like this, so that there's payment for parking structure or something in the future. But we don't have that in place right now, so it would just be, are you okay with this building being approved without any parking, knowing that that might create some impacts for the surrounding neighborhood? Yeah, with that, I'll turn it to the commission for any questions.
I'm sorry, where is the Lehi Bakery?
It's right here. It's this building right
next to it. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a parking lot now.
Yeah. Yep. We're like.
So not only do we not have
Saints
parking, we're removing parking.
Yeah.
Okay, so 72 is expounded as well, right? This building will demand 72 spots, but we're also removing downtown parking.
Existing. Yeah.
Okay.
This is where those food trucks always are.
Yeah. Any questions for staff?
I have a question.
Go. Oh, go.
So this is all office building. Have we do we need this in downtown Lehi? Is this something that people are clamoring for?
Yes, somewhat expected them to do the market studies and look into
Right.
that, but
Yeah, I just know we talked a little bit in DRC, and I think this is the same group, or at least my understanding.
Yeah, are they on the other end of the street?
Yeah, that has the
Okay.
Porter's Place building, and I think the demand has been strong on those little tiny micro suites, I guess you'd call them, the small office. We did talk to them about some retail on the ground floor, and I think they're open to that, and that's why they have some of the doors coming out onto the street that would allow the option for those to be retail, so it wouldn't be 100% office. And I
There's
think-
none of residential though, right? There's no apartments.
No, we asked them about that, and they could probably elaborate on why, but yeah, they didn't have an interest in doing the residential on this, so.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, right now there's the Saints and Sinners Coffee, and there's the Snow Shack that shows up every summer. So how much parking is actually currently utilized in this? Because those both take up spaces.
Yeah,
Do we know? I haven't
I
driven by
don't
to
think that
count.
anybody's done a formal analysis, but I think, sometimes people from the bakery may park there. I think the bakery, there's some on-street parking on Main Street, and then, one of the ideas that we put out there as part of the DRC is maybe they could provide some additional angled parking off of Second West, like we do, in front of the Lehi Free Press office and the old Dalley's building. That would help provide some additional parking. I mean, there's things that we could look at as a city.
Is there width enough there?
Yeah, I think it's the same downtown block width as what we have over on First West. Okay. And that has worked well. On the First West, it's both north and south, so Domino's and a lot of those smaller businesses, the people will park in those angled stalls, which is part of the public right-of-way, but that seems to help kind of maximize the space. And yeah, we have enough street width there.
Right. A lot of that on-street parking, like the Domino's or for the bakery, it's almost jump out, go grab your donuts, get back in and go. But this is going to be an office where people will be staying most of the day, I would assume.
Yeah.
That would be that's the difference in my
And
mind.
now that we have this up, you can see the overflow for the Legacy Center if you zoom out a little
Right
bit.
there.
Yeah. Anyway, so there is the alley that you can come down through to get to this property, but
What are the counts on that overflow? How often are we maxing that out?
definitely Junior Jazz Week, some of those big high demand
Come to a
events.
swim meet.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not like it's never utilized, but there are, it's less utilized than, during a normal day at the Legacy Center. This gets very little use. It's just when you have those big events. This is a tricky balance. We want to see revitalization of Main Street. This, basically this entire historic area was built in 70s to 19, when there were no cars. There were hitching posts. When I first started working here, there were still codes related to how you installed hitching posts in front of your business. So
How long have you been here?
I know. Yeah, long enough. It was one of those old codes that somebody was like, "Why is this still in here?" But yeah, it's a balance. We don't want to put a damper on redevelopment, and this is one of those areas that we have to get creative and hopefully find a solution without just. Otherwise, we'd never see anything new happen. You'd just shut everything down if we expect it to meet all of the current parking requirements for new commercial. So
Yeah, I would think that on evenings and weekends, that overflow is full, like you said, during the swim meets and
Yeah.
JJ games. Maybe during the weekdays, it's it's underutilized.
Sorry, one other thing. I would say it's been probably 2 or 3 years ago. We did do our own internal parking analysis. We went out, we counted how many publicly owned stalls there were, all of the on-street parking, the Legacy Center parking. And then we did, I think, a 3 or 4 week period, about a month, and we would fly a drone every day, count how many cars there were. And there is capacity. Now, is it convenient? You pull right up to the front? No, but, if you look at the overall city campus, now that will change. We probably should update that now that we have the new city hall and we have the gated employee parking. I can't remember if we're going to net positive or negative or a wash on once we open the new city hall. But we did show there was capacity. We're not at 100% ever. I think the highest we reached on some of these big event nights was in the 80% range. So there, at least like I said 2 years ago, there was always some available parking. It just may not always be super convenient. But if you think, a lot of the other older historic towns that you go to, Park City maybe is the high-profile example. You have to park and go walk in. So it's just one of those, how do you deal with our history and our past and still allow redevelopment to happen? Yeah.
Is this the edge of the historic district, or does it go further west?
Are you talking the National Register one?
No,
or just
our standards, our design standards.
I think it goes to 4th West. We can pull that up.
Okay.
But I think our design district goes a little bit farther west.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant present? Would you like to share more about your project?
Brian Knowlton. I represent the group that will be doing this. We are the same group that did the Rockwell State or Porter's Place on the other corner. What we did for our parking, part of our parking in that property was we entered into a lease with the city for some overflow parking. We've met with Marlon on this specific property, and he has a draft agreement for those stalls that Kim mentioned for our parking. We also in DRC, there was a lot of discussion about, at our expense, putting in the angle parking there on the westerly street, and that is city property, but would make the improvement, and so that would help us with our counts. Also, if you go to the floor plans, the standard is was it 1 to 300 square feet? If you start looking at this is the same model with executive offices for the upper floors. It's more one per box is what you're going to see in those spaces, with some coming and going. The final thing was on the ground floor. If you pull the ground floor space, we anticipate everything on the two streets to be like we know the coffee place wants to stay there and be in one of those spaces. We're talking with like hair salons, different things. We'd like to fill that bottom frontage with service or service retail. So that doesn't help me in my parking discussion, but it does help you in what we're envisioning here. So,
any questions for the applicant?
So you mentioned that these are executive offices. So by that you mean that these are individual offices where like one person will go in and work every day?
Yeah, some of what we've seen on the other building, which that's what the second floor and first floor is that right? If there's two people in that company, they literally want two spaces. So, they don't. Do we have any that share a space? No, I didn't think so. I didn't want to misrepresent them. So.
Okay, thank you.
But the intent is multi-tenant.
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 Yeah. We've had real success with that. We are involved on a lot of main streets. We do vertical mixed use. We've been doing that all over the Wasatch Front for about 20 years. This one is not a true mixed use, but it is still with the more commercial component on the ground, and then the office, to me, it's a mixed use. So, but we're involved. I can name off cities if you like, but we do. This is what we like, and this is what we do. We love to revitalize main streets in smaller towns.
Can you speak to the nature of the Porter's Place building? Obviously, has a residential component to it.
It does.
Why not consider that for this location as well?
What we learned. Okay, so in your zoning, we had to provide on-premise covered or garage, so that carved into the back of that building. And then it was just a little problematic in the building codes to do that. And then we do fine with our residential units there, but would then as good or better with the executive offices. So why fight that and try to put garages off the alley? They don't have the proper back out to get in there, and it would have just carved out a lot of the usable square footage. We love those residents, and they're awesome, but we're trying something a little different.
I think the reason why to consider it is because it is mixed use, right? That's the intent of the zone, is to bring in a mixed use into the area. So it's not just a office building, right? So it does have multiple purposes that's used at different times of different day, right? Right now, you drive down Main Street at night, it is dead, right? Everything is closed, right? Which is normal, right? What you would expect in a retail or an office environment. But I think the intent, I don't want to misspeak, or I'm not speaking for staff here, but the intent of mixed use is to revitalize and bring in a mixed use into the area, so it is not just segmented for office or retail or commercial, but that there is that mixed component which brings a vibrance into the area.
And we believe we're getting that component with the restaurant and the services on the ground floor that will help revitalize and help. The first city I did this in is in Bountiful, and frankly, Bountiful rolls up when it goes dark. And so what we've been doing there is we are exactly that. We're trying to create more housing, but what we found is we push the housing there, but we don't have the entertainment, the restaurants, et cetera. So this is still a very important component to get that street engaged in the evenings.
Just telling you why.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
No.
For staff or for
For the applicant?
I don't know if it's so much a question, but I would still have concerns about people that would come to your building for the workday, park in front of Lehi Bakery. So Lehi Bakery's clientele, then they're looking for places. So I think, obviously parking's a big deal. We'd like to see more people walk and ride their bikes and do that. But that's a whole societal shift that we're having trouble making right now. So I would, would you require your people to park in the overflow?
The offices, absolutely, and we do that because we have that arrangement with the city on our other building. The comments I've gotten from different communities that I've worked with on these exact buildings was, wouldn't it be nice if we had a parking problem? Why is it when you go anywhere, it's okay to walk a block to park, but people are accustomed to parking right in front of their door in these small towns, and that's what we got to change. It's okay to walk a half a block. You go to the mall. How far do you walk to get inside?
Well, I go to Vasa and for my workout, and I want to park right at the front door because I don't want any
you don't
more
want to work
steps
to
than I
get
have
there.
to take.
Yeah.
But I think my concern again is that if
It's
I'm
a
going for a box
mindset.
of donuts,
Yeah.
I don't want to park 2 blocks away,
But
run
you
over to
would.
get my donuts and back because somebody's been parked there for 5 hours.
Yeah.
That's my concern.
No, and I get that, and the way we've solved that, and it's hard to enforce because I'm involved with a lot of cities, is you start to put like a 20-minute limit on a stall on those parallel ones. police department would go cross-eyed if they even heard me said that the signs do help people to realize that that's not a camping spot.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have another question. So are you saying that you feel like there's enough parking between the angled on the street parking and the 30 stalls like overflow for the Legacy Center?
Yeah, if you count the units, that's what we based our request with Marlin on, was for the 30 stalls, was to service the upper floors.
So we're not going by square footage like the city does in the code.
Well, the code, and I don't want to talk about your code. I've got pros here, but it is kind of, this area in this zone is not really a standard, but it kind of gives you guys the input on what it is. Does not go to the base code. It's kind of a defined parking. And we're not coming in saying we don't need any parking. We're coming in saying we've contemplated that. We've looked at, it's a similar arrangement with Marlin. I did send Brittany a copy of the draft that Marlin's provided us on parking. If with Planning Commission and our internal things, we find that we need 40, we'll lease 40. And Brittany commented on the payment in lieu for parking. The lease we have and this lease, we are paying for parking on an annualized lease. So we're helping to provide the funds to take care of the stalls we're using.
Any other questions for the applicant? Or did you want to share anything else while you're here?
I think I get it. Yeah. We do like the look of this building. We don't want a clone of the other building, and we're trying to get it a little more period looking, the way that if you look back at those elevations. We did try to hit the requirements on the opacity and the glass and the breaks in materials, and we feel like this would be a good asset for your community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim, could you speak to the mixed-use zone? Does it have a requirement for a variation of uses or no?
It does not. I think the intent, I think you're correct. The intent is that we're trying to get a mix, but it doesn't require it on each individual project. And I did just want to confirm what he said is correct, what the applicant said about in mixed use, there's no minimum parking requirement. So you could technically approve this with 0 parking,
right?
But we use our standard parking requirements as at least some kind of a gauge. And, we don't obviously want to, approve everything with no parking, or we'll have a really big
But per
crisis.
code, we don't really have a leg to stand on to stop.
Oh, as far as the mixed
parking.
use.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just says that you can be guided by our standard requirements that would normally apply if this was in a commercial zone, for example. But there is technically no base requirement. And then, there's, we can't force the residential into this.
Sure.
It does allow retail, office, mixed use, like actual residential and commercial.
And it sounds like their intent is to have some retail component on the ground floor.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Along those same lines, because this is an administrative item, if it meets code, we should approve it. I've been under the understanding that minimum number of parking spaces was part of the code, but it sounds like that's not the case. So,
Yeah, in this area, it's not.
Not for mixed use.
so is there any part of this plan that doesn't meet code? Because if not, then we should approve it.
Yeah, that's correct. You do, it does say, parking requirements for the mixed use and historic commerce district shall be as approved by the zoning administrator, reviewing departments, and planning commission. So you can say, we think this sounds more reasonable, or we are going to say that you have to provide some on site or something like that. Like, it does give you some leeway where you're supposed to be guided by the requirement, and then you do determine it at this point, saying this is what the parking will be.
We have always wrestled with concept plans. about what it actually means and what we are actually saying yay or nay to. However, before we dive too much into that, this is a public hearing. If anybody from the public would like to speak to this item, now is your time to do so. Seeing none. Oh, maybe. Okay. I will close the public hearing on item 4.6 and bring it back for either further discussion or a motion.
I think further discussion is needed in that you were wanting a motion, weren't you? It's, I don't feel good about it. Mainly, I don't feel good about parking. I'm with you in that I would prefer mixed use. I would love to see a residential component here, but I'm really stuck on the parking. And to illustrate that, just to get my thoughts out in the air, because I want to hear your thoughts as well. So with item 4.1, I felt good about approving that despite them not reaching the number of parking stalls they needed, just because they are right there next to Young Living and Podium, and I expect their busy time is going to be weeknights and weekends where people aren't working in the office, so they have tons of parking there to be able to utilize. Right, so I feel good about that situation. But in this situation, we're, to the very first comment that you made, we're taking away the existing parking that's there in that immediate area. And yes, there is the overflow parking just half a block away, but we're slowly taking away all the parking that serves the busy businesses that are actually on Main Street. And I feel like that's going to just be a big issue.
I could argue at the same, if we're arguing, not that we're
Argue,
arguing.
do it.
I could argue at the same time this is office, which is primarily a daytime use, when a lot of the combined, or the congestion from Legacy Center is typically weekends and nights. That is the highest use, sometimes early morning as well. Midday, it's less of a demand, typically. I'm not saying there aren't events that happen every now and then or things that pull a demand, but the argument, I think, goes the inverse direction of what you said, where this is a daytime use pulling those demand for the parking lots or parking during the day, but then in the evening when the demand for neighboring facilities may be at a higher peak, they would likely be vacated at that point, or potentially vacated at that point. So, yeah, just a thought there.
It looks like we would lose about 14 stalls with the quick math that I can do. Would we be able to replace those 14 stalls on that street if they did the angle parking?
I think when we drew it out, it added like 5, just because it's right here, just be this frontage right here, and then I guess maybe if you added 5 more on the other side. So, but there is some more opportunity down, so there is some more. It might spill out into the surrounding streets a little bit more, but there is capacity on the surrounding streets.
Any angled parking tied to this project would be just on their corner, though, right? It wouldn't be across the street. That they would be
able to, yeah. I mean, I guess it depends. It's a public street, so it would be. I mean, it wouldn't be exactly tied to their business if it's the public street. Right?
Sure. But I'm just speaking of as far as making it, right? Developing that corner to have. They wouldn't be ripping out the sidewalk and putting in angled parking and then changing the sidewalk on the other side of the street, right? That's not their side of the property. That's not, or is that on the table?
We could look
what are we talking about here, right?
Yeah, we could say that as part of their development, they need to provide that, like restriping, redesign of, adding maybe some curb extensions and stuff. So,
Are we talking about Main Street or 200?
200.
They're already paying, right? There's a payment in lieu of parking.
No, so they have an agreement drafted to lease the spots from the Legacy Center overflow. Okay. So it's like a lease of those spots.
Because I see where you're thinking, but I don't know if you could have a builder developer. Well, you got to put parking
on both
a
sides.
block away.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Again, that sounds messy to me, but
Yeah. I have a quick question, if I may.
Please.
So if they are able to lease those spots from the Legacy Center, does that then become parking only for the business or for that office building, or are Legacy Center attendees still able to, like, does it designate that or say to put signage or anything up saying this is only available for, does it restrict that parking, or is it still open and that's just?
I think we need to read the agreement to know for sure how
Okay.
it's stated. I don't remember.
I mean, while you're looking for that, this is a sticky one too for me. I mean, I like the idea of bringing more things to Main Street, getting some of that revitalization. The parking piece is sticky. I mean, it's a change that we're trying to make, I think, in the city. It's a direction we're trying to go, and it's going to be really tough and really uncomfortable for a while, but hopefully everybody gets used to it. I don't know. I don't know.
I think we've got a good source with the Porter's Place, that has been successful, and they've learned from that, and now they're going to try and take out the part that's not working. So I think it's a good practice run for doing it on the other side of the street.
If we can't find it, probably the applicant knows the answer to the question.
And it was just kind of like a
it's
question that I
fair.
had. So
I'm assuming it'll be set up the same as what we did with Porter's. So, yeah,
What's that now?
he
Okay.
may be familiar with it.
And by the way, I scanned in the agreement also, Brittany. It's silent in it, but our understanding, it's non-exclusive. It's first come, first served.
okay.
Okay. And then, as I was looking through and listening to your comments since I got back to the mic, I would be very comfortable to commit to doing angle parking either to the north, okay, and or no, what, south. To that south block, so it's kind of on the same, or across, because even if we went across that street, I think it helps create a nice thing there. And also, when I said I had a stall per space, I'm counting as I'm looking up there. I think it would also be appropriate, this is based on 30, I know, or I believe with Marlin, we could push that to like 40, so that it provides 40 stalls. I think 30, we were going 30 in the angled parking, but I'm wondering if I need to push this to 40. And again, if we did both sides of that street on city, it's with the city, still city property, city parking, I think it actually enhances our project for what it's worth.
Any other commentary or questions, thoughts?
Yeah,
feelings?
probably just more commentary. I do feel like because this does meet code, our hands are tied, so we need to approve it. I appreciate the applicant's willingness to, what it seems like, to work and help solve the problem by adding additional parking where it's within their power. I do think it would be beneficial, maybe during one of our working sessions, to go through mixed-use areas and maybe reconsider if we should include a minimum parking requirement. The thoughts, I'm happy to put forward a motion. Okay.
I'd love to hear one.
Okay, item 4.6, public hearing and consideration of Gary Knapp's request for approval of the Rockwell Station concept plan for an office building located at 200 West Main Street. The motion being that we approve the concept plan that has been put forward to us. With the findings that it is consistent with Lehi City's development code. And please include DRC comments. There's nothing we can do, right, Craig, as far as, the applicant has said that they're going to help work to put additional parking spaces in, but there's really nothing else we can do.
So under the mixed use, you have the discretion to review parking and to, hold things up if you don't feel like there's enough parking, those types of things. In this case, if you want, you can always make a recommendation, that yes, your motion could be we request approval. as long as they follow the DRC comments, as well as we recommend you continue working with the city to ensure that parking is sufficient.
Love that. Okay. I'm not going to repeat that because it was, okay. But please include that. Thank you.
I'll second. Yeah.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 4.7 has been moved to a further date, future date. So item 4.8.
Public hearing. Let's get to this. Okay.
Yes, it is.
4.8, public hearing and recommendation of JDH Development's request for review of the Clark Meadow subdivision concept plan, an 11-lot residential project located at 9227 West, 7750 North, approximately 1800 West, 1300 South, with a request for an exception in the form of density in lieu to allow flexibility on setbacks. So the applicant submitted standard subdivision that meets all the requirements. This is in the R122 zone, so 22,000 square foot minimum lot size. All the lots meet it, and they have 11 lots. And these ones are even a little bit bigger, which so they could still probably meet the requirement with having the if we just were to purchase the Dry Creek right away. But the proposal is that they will dedicate the Dry Creek corridor to the city and build the 10-foot trail, as well as a trail connection in from the neighborhood, and parcel A would be some open space. And then they still just have the 11 lots. So it's kind of a density in lieu, but it's mostly just like flexible lots. So a reduction, not all the lots meet the 22,000 square feet. They're all, so that's about a half an acre. And they're all over 15,000 square feet, so over a third of an acre. So a little bit smaller, but still large lots. And so having those smaller lots and some flexibility with the width as well allows them to get the same amount of lots while also giving us the right-of-way for the trail and providing some open space. And so that's kind of the trade-off. These density in lieu is either the city pays for the trail and the property, or we give them the flexibility, and then we don't have to reimburse them for putting it in otherwise. And I guess also, this happens throughout the city, but the property right next to it, the South Creek Plat A, also did density in lieu for Dry Creek improvements and Dry Creek trail construction, also for a park and some things they did. And they actually got 4 additional lots, reduced lot sizes and reduced frontage. And so a lot of these lots, they're also zoned R122, but a lot of those lots are closer to the third of an acre anyways. So it's not something that hasn't been done in this area or would really not fit in with the existing development. And just a reminder for the Planning Commission, this density in lieu, anything with like the financing, is a city council decision. So you're just making a recommendation. We're just looking at if you think this fits in with the area, if it would be a good development, and they'll just pass that recommendation on to the city council. And with that, I'll turn it back to the commission for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
So I just want to confirm that these lots are similar in size to the surrounding lots. I mean, you said half acre to a third of an acre. Is that like the lots to the west are half acre, and then the ones to the south are?
Yeah, so a lot of the other to the south and to the east are not subdivided, so they are larger lots that are just like agricultural
still-
remnants. So, I mean, it's not the same as those, but yeah, to the west with that other subdivision, it's similar in size.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question on what we're looking at. That the white space there, that's the lot 3. Is there?
I think it's just because there's an existing home.
Okay, that's kind of what I was. Yeah, that's what I was asking. It's just making sure. So, okay, that makes sense.
And tell me, if they don't get the density bonus in lieu, how many lots would they be permitted?
So again, their base layout showed 11, so it's not looking like they're getting any lots.
It's just the size.
Yeah, it's
that
just
they're-
Shrinking the size.
because
Got it.
again, the base layout didn't include any of the corridor
Understood.
space. Yeah.
Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant present?
So yeah, name is Austin Cooper. Not really anything to add. That was a great explanation. In reality, this is a project that a different developer was doing most of the work, and we're just kind of coming in last minute and purchased it from him, and then doing some of the last minute work. So
Any questions for the applicant? All right, you're off the hook for now. All right, this is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak to item 4.8, this is your time. Yes, please.
My name's Annette Gom. I live immediately north of this. Now, it says that it's open church property, but it's not totally that. About half of it is my property that is across the street from this. And I'm just wondering, how many of you have been out there to that area, that subdivision? I have. And taken a look at. And I'm just wondering, now parcel A, what happens with parcel A? Is that going to be a park or just open space? Who maintains it? You know, there are several parks in the area. It's not like as though we need another park there. The city's got 40 acres just across the street that they're developing, and there's already a small park there. And why do we need another if what we have to do is give up and have smaller lots? And the area is zoned for now. When we moved there, all the lots were supposed to be 5 acres. And that didn't last for long, and they have immediately been narrowed and narrowed and narrowed and narrowed down to, and are there any half-acre lots in this subdivision?
Yeah, there would still be a few that would.
How many is a few?
And I guess, yeah.
Address your comments here, and we'll get to them after you're finished. So address all your questions and concerns.
Okay,
to
well,
us.
The original intent for that area was that it have larger lots, animal rights, and that it retain the historic character of Lehi, and then, you know, they keep trying to narrow down the lots and narrow down and whatever. And so, and I guess I question, I know that it's enticing and, you know, to say, well, we have another park, but do we really need another park? We have 2 schools close by. We have a little park there on 17th West already, and the city has 40 acres that they haven't developed yet. And so, you know, is it really worth the trade-off? Now, another question that I have is, you know, with the difficulty with Pioneer Crossing and all of the traffic and the issues there, it would seem to me that, you know, we might be a little slower about approving another subdivision that's going to bring even more traffic when there is no real relief. Pioneer Crossing has traffic. It's backed up for however miles. Even in the middle of the day, it's backed up. It's slow. You know how Pioneer Crossing is. And at some point in time, that's going to have to be addressed. Now, the original plan, when they first came out there, was that they were going to, both the Lake Road and Pioneer Crossing were going to be developed so that there could be traffic go both ways on not only Lake Road but Pioneer Crossing, and that was supposed to help. And how the Lake Road development got forgotten, I don't know, but there's not been much done about that. But I'm really concerned about what it adds to that. Now, as far as my property goes, there's already an outlet from the other subdivision that was just recently approved there. And then there are, I think, 2 houses, and now there will be another outlet. And I don't know what that's going to do to 7750 North and what that's going to do to, the traffic. And 7750 North there's only one outlet from that subdivision right now. Perhaps in the future, there'll be another one, but there isn't now. If we were to have an emergency out there, we'd be in big problems, kind of thing. So I'm not sure exactly. Now it just says right away. I'm assuming that's for streets. Is that what it means, streets? But the plan that I can see on the computer is kind of vague. And when I tried to look at the size of the lots, the printing is so small that I can't see like this. You can't see how big they are now. I'm assuming, is the white one that goes length, is that where the existing house is? Is that what that is? Now, is that part of the subdivision or not? It says Lot 3. And what happens with that? Is that the developer own that, or do the Clark still own that, or what's happening there?
Great question. Keep going with your questions. We'll address everything when you're finished.
Okay. And of course, we have high underground water in that area, as you know. And, now that we've got a new city council, a new mayor, and some new commissioners and that sort of thing, might be a time to reevaluate exactly what is your plan for the development of Lehi? Where are we going? I've lived in Lehi for 20 years now almost, and I don't know. It just kind of pops up here and pops up there, and there doesn't really seem to be a whole lot of coordination or organization. Now, maybe I'm just not aware of what's there, but I don't see it in the layout, and I don't see it in the buildings that are building. And I think Lehi has a wonderful opportunity to be a destination town, like, say, Park City. People would come to Lehi because of its character and because it's someplace that they can come and they can walk up and down Main Street and go in and out of some little shops and, have an ice cream cone and maybe enjoy some music or something like that. And because where we're squeezed between Saratoga Springs and the freeway and other cities, what do we have that's different and unique? Or are we just going to be another cookie cutter town up and down the freeway? So what does all that have to do with the subdivision? Well, at some point in time, you know, you have to kind of stop and say, just a minute, where am I at with this? Where is this going? And, you know, that property is going to be developed, and I am not anti-development, but what I am is I'd like to see a little more thought and planning go into a broader range of things, such as roads and the water and the congestion in the schools, particularly in that area that I live in. And, you know, why do we need another park, particularly one that's kind of put off in a hole that most people are not going to use? I would not think. It's like the little park that's there on 17th West already. You know, it's got, a slide and a couple of things and a picnic table. But it's, you know, I see a few people once in a while stop there, but it's not what I would say heavily used. And I would suspect that this one, and you know, I can understand that the developer wants as many lots as possible because, you know, at $300,000 a piece, the more you've got, the more you know, that's very enticing, and I can understand that. And I can understand the city's desire to, you know, shift the cost and responsibility for developing that off to someone else. But, you know, all that gets done in a stroke of the pen and one thing another, and then, you know, we live with it. And, you know, 5-10 years from now, I probably won't be around, but others will be, and they'll be dealing with, you know, the traffic issues and the congestion issues and all of the other kinds of things. And so I'm wondering, as I look at the concept plan, it really doesn't tell me a lot. I see squares on the paper and all that kind of thing. And I'd like to see something a little more detailed than there. I'd like to be able to look at that and say, oh, this is how this is going to plan, and, well, whatever. And so, I don't know, will there be another public hearing, or is this it?
Yes, there will.
There will be. Where there can be public input.
We'll be happy to discuss that as soon as you're finished.
All right. Well, I'd like to know that I appreciate that. I'm glad to know that that's going to be, because, you know, as things go, as things begin to evolve around that, and you begin to kind of see it on the ground, if there are problems such as the traffic problems that's going to create for us, you know, 77 North is just a little short street. And when we begin to have all of the traffic dumped onto it from the other subdivision, what's that called, South Park or something, and from this subdivision, and then we turn around and go over to Pioneer Crossing, it really impacts quality of life out there. So anyway, I would hope that you would look very carefully at what the impact on the quality of life for the people who have already invested and been there, and that this and deal now may be the time for the city to start saying to UDOT or whoever they need to make a point with that, you know, we're going to make an issue of the problem on Pioneer Crossing. And I understand that, you know, with the flex plan and whatever, they're doing that. But, that is not going to help for very long, and everybody knows that. That is not a permanent solution. It never was intended to be. And so it's just a stopgap. And so the time is maybe now to begin to say you're inhibiting the development in Lehi because we can't get the Lake Road developed, which would give us, there's more back and forth. Now, I understand that, you know, there's always the option that if people have, you know, they're going to build a house, okay, so they'll go to Saratoga Springs or Eagle Mountain and build their house, and they'll get the tax money. So, whatever, but what that does really is it compromises the quality of life for the people in Lehi. And is it worth that in order to hold on to these people that might build in Lehi? Or is it better to take a look at what Lehi could become? And you know, we're just in a wonderful position, as I say, to be. You know, we've got the flour mill there, and it could be, you know, an emblem and symbol and build around that and have architecture and storefronts and, you know, build something for Lehi that attracts people to come to Lehi for the day or the weekend. And then, you know, then Lehi has a future. But now it's only going to get worse. We'll become service stations and 7-Elevens. Not that they're bad, but they don't give you the quality of life that you're looking for. So, you know, a little vision about it would be wonderful. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak to this item?
In going over this, the plot plan, you know, I think that the original one is far better because what's happening is you're putting small building lots right on the side of the road, so it doesn't represent the development, and you know, with the park in through there, that narrows those down. So I'm saying is there's smaller lots, and those are the visual lots as you drive down the road. This road here has gotten to be a very major road, lots of traffic. And so you have 3 small lots, and then you also have the big lots in the back. I think the basic plan, the way it was set up with the 3 larger lots in there, represents the development a lot better than it does to have a small park and 3 small units. And basically, these look like that they don't fall under the R22 in the size of the lot. I mean, if you have a basic plan and you say, okay, we're R22, then each lot should be R22. And now, is these front road lots, are they up to code or up to R22? It doesn't look that way. The other thing is, when you count this, if that house is part of the existing house is part of the development, you really have 12 lots, not 11. And so it depends on what's going to happen. The other thing is that if that be the case, there's nothing to stop a developer from splitting that lot and making 2 additional ones. So I'm just saying is you have a general plan. You should live up to that general plan. And I think they should make it look as appealing within the development as possible, and putting 3 small sub-R22 lots as the representative of the development doesn't make sense. And if you look at the basic plan doesn't take the house into consideration that exists there, but it does put the bigger lots up front. And I think, you know, too, is I come from California, and Californians don't know anything more than Utahs do. But I'll tell you what, when they develop there, they make the developer build the road. They make the developer put the sidewalks in. They make the developer do a lot of things. I think you have an opportunity to do the same thing. I think you need to put a moratorium on the building of the homes until you get this road thing straightened out. I mean, the thing is, it's only going to get worse. And the thing is that it doesn't represent Lehi. And I think, like my sister said, is that when you come from a place other than here, this has a lot of character. You should take that downtown Main Street and develop that into a very, Utah town. I was born and raised in Utah. But on the other hand, is that you have an opportunity to develop Lehi into a wonderful little city that you can put little benches outside. People can come there on Sundays. They can do whatever. But I'm just saying, is you have, because you're new, have an opportunity to do great things in Lehi. But back to this here is that you are going to have additional kind of presentation for for input.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing is, my question is, what are you going to do with the existing house? How is that part of this development?
Great question.
Thank you.
Sir, could you say your name? Sorry.
Pardon?
Sorry.
Can we get your name for the
It's Warren Johnson.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Andrew Ward, and I am on the northwest border of the proposed development. I do have some concerns. Obviously, many people have already said that it's zoned for a certain level, and it seems like a bit hypocritical because I live on the adjacent lot that was downsized. I would prefer to have a larger lot, but if you keep doing that over and over and over again, it no longer is an R22, and you have a higher density. But questions, I guess, for the developer is why 11? If you look at the annexation plan for this, it actually proposed 9 total lots to accommodate for the half-acre lot and to allow for improvement for the ditch and the trail. So, I feel like the 2 plans just ignored that completely and basically force the city into a corner that says either you get half-acre lots or you get the trail. We're not going to give up, what we're going to do, even though it would have been reasonable to start up with a plan with the proposed 9 lots and to see if you could add an additional. There probably can get 10 lots and still adhere to all of the, the zoning and requirements. So I guess my question is why isn't that brought up? Why is there always there's never a downsize. There's always, you have to allow us to have more lots. I understand it's profit driven, but they had all the information about what to expect from that, the lot yield, and went above that, and then are now basically giving an ultimatum of half-acre lots or trail improvement, which I don't think is appropriate. And like as mentioned before, there's going to be a large park on 17th. There is actually one 100 yards to the west of that development placed by Patterson when they built our subdivision. And there is an incredible amount of traffic that people are cutting through on 13th, going in that section right there, regularly 50 to 60 miles an hour to get down to those condos. I've had conversations with the police department. I've had very strongly worded conversations with my neighbors about their speed. So I don't think this works for our community. And then again, we have expectations that the city is going to follow the general plan, and if we keep making exceptions, it just changes the whole feel. And with all of Saratoga and Eagle Mountain just exploding with development, I think there needs to be a buffer zone, and right there is where we can have that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak to 4.8? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. I'll invite the applicant back up.
Can I bring up that there was some comments online?
Oh, please, reopen public hearing to include those.
Yeah, so, let's see. There's one, please stop letting builders override what the property was annexed and zoned for, by Stephanie Ward. Flexible easements are unnecessary, restrictions need to remain in place, Natalie Crump. I live in the neighboring South Creek development. I definitely like the proposed plan that allows for the trail connection and some additional green space. Developers should be required to install sidewalk along 1300 South. Can't tell from the drawing if this is included. Thank you, Brian Morgan. We need to protect what was approved already. We don't need to continue cramming more dense subdivisions in Lehi. Justin Crump. And the annexation of this property discussed half-acre lots with a total of 10 lots, including the existing home. Neither of the proposed plans adhere to this. The base layout could be adjusted to include the trail system if the south 3 lots were converted to 2 lots. This would adhere to the half-acre lot and 10 total lot proposal. Andrew Ward.
Now we will close the public hearing. Thank you. I will invite the applicant to come forward. Please speak to any and all that you heard that you would like to address.
Okay, so I think one of the first ones is the existing home under our plan right now will remain. So the white rectangle where the home exists, that one right there, lot 3, we're not planning on tearing the home down. As I said initially, a previous developer did all the annexation work and all that stuff. We've kind of come in after all that was done. So I personally actually haven't seen any other designs other than these two. And from my understanding, as staff mentioned, the previous plan with 11 lots does meet code, city code. So we're happy to go that route and meet all of the city codes. It would just mean the city would have to then buy back the land on the south end for the trail. I should have made more notes on what was all said. I don't know if there's anything else.
Did you mention the high water table? Is that a concern with your?
Not necessarily. I mean, the development. I know the development to the west, they had to raise up a little bit, and we were planning on raising to meet. I don't think there'll be any issues with the development from a high water standpoint. The homes. It won't impact the homes. Yeah.
Is there plans for who will maintain the park?
My understanding is that it's being deeded to the city.
The city would?
Yeah, the trail and park, the open air is all being deeded to the city.
So there wouldn't be an HOA to maintain it, it would be the city park?
Yeah.
Sidewalks on 1300? Is that the road? Am I getting that right?
1300 of the top, yeah.
Are you doing those?
Yeah.
As part of your
I'm pretty sure.
development?
Yeah, we do require
They
that
have to.
Yeah.
it always, if they're developing, they have to do the full road right away.
I wondered if they were talking about a
Sidewalk.
different road.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Yeah,
but
no.
it's the road right by.
Where our development reaches, yeah, we won't go beyond that, but anywhere in the development, yes.
So you'd never seen a 10-lot plan?
No, 10 or 9 lots. I don't know which one. Yeah,
I think it was 10 that was mentioned.
And I would clarify too, there wasn't a concept plan submitted with the annexation, like an official concept plan submittal. They maybe had it as like an exhibit with the annexation, but it wasn't like an approved concept. It was just there as kind of this is what we might do. So it's not like it was an approved concept plan or anything like that.
Was this annexed from the county or from? Okay.
Yeah.
In the county.
Yep.
And even if there was a previous concept, they have the ability to file a new one, and we'd just reconsider it. So, irregardless, this is the current proposal. So,
I did have a question about the other concept. There were 2.
oh yeah, base layout.
The other base layout, if we could see that. this meets the half acre,
Yeah, all of these.
all
meet
of 100%.
Yep.
Okay.
And they have the frontage and, yep, they all are according to.
And so because of that, the applicant or the developer, they're able to, without any additional approval, they can build these lots.
Yeah, and that's where it gets, so we have on our master plan trail network, this trail going through Dry Creek, and so we're gonna build it either way, right? That's not really the question here. It's if we don't do the payment or the density in lieu, then we're paying for it. And so that means we have to just pay the developer for the purchase of the land, for the cost it puts to install the trail. So we would be paying tax dollars for that, right? And we wanted to make sure that that was understood by everyone, that this density in lieu, which is just a lot flexibility, means that as a city, we're not paying tax dollars for this property because the property owner owns it, that we can't force them to put it in without giving them some compensation. So it's either do it this way or pay tax dollars, and that might, increase property tax if we do that enough, or other ramifications.
Just for my own edification, could the applicant or the city, is there any ballpark dollar figure you could give us if we did not approve the proposed plan? What numbers are we talking in order to purchase the trail connection for the base layout? Again, ballpark.
Are you talking through eminent domain or through if they're willing to sell it? Because those are two different.
Either one. I'll take any number I can get.
Yeah, we went through some of those numbers. I don't have them right here in front of me, but it was on the order of 300,000, something like that, for the right-of-way, the trail, putting in the trail, and improving the Dry Creek through there. It takes a lot of money to do that.
And that would just be purchasing the back strip of the lots here.
Yeah, 20 feet on the back.
And there would be no trail access from this development. You'd have to go back to.
Correct. As the way that it's designed
West
on the base model, yeah. There's no trail from the development into the
right.
Trail.
Any other questions for applicant? Thank you. There were comments on, yes, we have a new administration in the city. We have a new mayor. We have new council members. Luckily, this is going forward to them. We are a recommending body in this item. So we will give a recommendation, and they will get a chance to hear it and make a decision, a final decision on what happens here. Concept plans usually only come to the planning commission and they get approved and they live and die here, right? But because this has that request of the density, or not the density, we're saying density, that we're not changing the amount of lots, right? But we are looking at some compensation change, which we do not control the purse of the city in any way, right? That is strictly city council and mayor. And that's why this would go forward to that body. So we are a recommending body. We will give our recommendation, maybe with further discussion or a motion, and then city council, you'll have an opportunity to speak to the city council when it moves forward to them. I hope that clears that up if you had questions there. This is a concept plan. There was a question of details. There's not a whole lot of details on this. This is a concept. It is not a final plat, right? When it does come forward for final platting, it will have the details that have been perceived as missing or lacking from this, which is a requirement when it comes forward to that stage. They are not at the stage right now. They are at a stage of asking our feelings, our thoughts on how this is, which is what a concept is for, right? So I believe that was any clarification there. This would be a public hearing at city council, yes. Yes. Oh, you will hear that very soon. Oh, okay, sorry. Typically, we do not go back and forth, and I love to yell to you guys, but let's not do that, okay? Any other further discussion? I'll give my quick thought. I struggle when we take away animal rights from properties. Properties that have less than a half acre do not have the full animal rights, right? They're limited on the rights that an owner could have. Those days are going by and bygone, right? As far as people that want to put a horse on their land or not. I'm not saying that those people don't exist. They do exist. And I struggle when we as a city do that, right? We remove that opportunity or potential that someone may have in the future. That is something I've always wrestled with while sitting out here on this, in this body. That being said, this is a decision that the city council will have to see. In the past, this has been a common practice to trade land and a trade-off of improvements for a trail, which I don't want to underemphasize. That is a huge benefit to a city, to a community, and that's something that our city, we are committed to doing, right? To connect our trail system and to keep it moving. That is not a small thing, and I don't want to diminish that. However, this is a awesome opportunity for us to take a temperature of our new council, where they're at on these types of issues and where they feel. We will provide a recommendation, and we will see where things land.
The spirit of getting our thoughts out, there are a few trade-offs here. I'm looking at this and thinking there's a few trade-offs here. One of them being bigger lot sizes versus smaller lot sizes. But the biggest trade-off that I'm seeing, which is ultimately driving me towards my decision, is do we want to use taxpayer funds to pay for this trail connection, or do we want to do this density in lieu, which would save taxpayer dollars? And again, that's the biggest trade-off, and that's an easy decision for me.
I like your thoughts, because mine are, I suppose, similar. I wonder, it's so nice to have access to a trail like that, to be able to get on and go. I mean, I know there's access to the west. There will be access, probably, depending on the people to the east decide to do it their property. I do struggle with, going under that half-acre lot size. So I've got these two conflicting thoughts. Which would be better for the community? Which would be better for this neighborhood? And you guys live in the neighborhood, so it's interesting to me that these lots are pretty much the same size, if not a little bit bigger than the ones that are just directly to the west. If you go a street across, they're a little bit smaller, so it's very similar to what's already in that area. So those are my thoughts. I'm trying to figure out how important it is to have access to that trail, how important it is to have somebody else pay for the trail, or do we keep the lot size?
If anyone doesn't have any additional thoughts, I'm happy to put forward a motion.
Do it.
Item 4.8, public hearing recommendation of JDH Development's request for review of the Clark Meadows subdivision concept plan, an 11-lot residential project located at 9227 West, 7750 North, approximately 1800 West, 1300 South, with a request for an exception in the form of density in lieu to allow flexibility on setbacks. The motion being that we recommend approval for this item. Again, this item will go before City Council, with our findings being that the proposed concept is consistent. I'm not going to put that one. The proposed concept does conform to the goals and policies of the general plan, and please include DRC comments.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay. So the motion carries forward with a positive recommendation of the city council. When will this go to them?
It will be the 27th of this month.
So this will be heard again by the city council on the 27th of January. Thank you.
Tyson, were you the only nay on that
I
one?
was. Yes.
Sorry, your voices are all different this year. So it's
You gotta get used to us now.
4.9. Thank you again for your comments. 4.9.
Public hearing in consideration of Big O Tire's request for conditional use approval of an exception to the setback limit for Big O Tire's concept plan located at 4193 West Rinda Drive. This is the auto service use is a conditional use in the Cold Spring Ranch area plan. So you're considering that use as a conditional use. And then also an exception for the maximum setback. So there's a 50-foot maximum setback, but they're at like 61 feet. And it's, to allow for the parking module and the drive aisle. With that, I'll turn it back to the commission for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
I do. There's 8 red line comments. So that's pretty close to your pretty close to 10. Can staff explain what their major concerns are?
I don't think there was anything major. So we do try and have it 10 or less to come forward, and nothing major that still needs to be worked out. Just some minor things that they can clean up, usually is what it is.
Can you tell me what's a red line comment versus a regular comment?
So we just call them all red line comments, but it's code requirements. And we try and differentiate. So usually if they're numbered, because you'll notice even on this one, and we do different things. We probably do need to come up with something super consistent. But this is the concept. So some of these are for the site plan, and it's just because it's not detailed enough, right? Like we don't have the full landscape plans, and so some of what's shared is just informational for when you submit the actual site plan. This is what we're looking for, and then with the review we'll make sure that they meet all these requirements, and even some of these. So yeah, glades, it's all for the site plan because we don't require any power with the concept. Ryan's are also, it's just information for the developer of the utility size and location when they do the site plan of how they're tying in. All of James with Parks comments are, again, just the requirements that we'll be looking for when they submit the site plan. Gary, same thing, a soil report. Soil report will be required, requirement with site plan. Gary's are the same thing. All of these are more just informational. Same with, signs will require a separate sign permit. That's just letting them know that. So really the only thing is this max setback and the fact that it's a conditional use. Everything else is stuff that we're just letting them know ahead of time what we want to see with the site plan.
So, sorry to, but 30 trees on a business like this?
Yeah.
That's a requirement we have?
Well, it's 30 trees per acre.
Per acre, so it's more like, what,
Yeah.
45,
Yeah,
50?
because it's over an acre. Yeah.
And that's one that we are aware that usually doesn't work. That's something that sometimes comes to you as an exception, and also we're talking with Parks and trying to figure out what
Doesn't
would be
work.
more
We would
reasonable.
really like to see 70.
Yeah, it does seem like this comes up quite a bit.
We're looking to improve our canopy.
So is that a work session item?
That'd be a good one to discuss, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant present?
Hello, my name's David Clayton with DEIV Architecture. I'm representing the owner on this project.
Anything else to add?
I've designed several of these Big O tires in different communities, and one of the reasons for the request for the exception to that maximum setback is, as you can see, we do have that single aisle of parking on that side, and part of that is because of the way that we're trying to keep the building as compact as possible on the site so that we can allow for best use of the site. We have double-loaded maintenance bays, so but we don't just put up just regular garage doors. They're actually the nice glass, shiny doors that look pretty. If you go to there's a few of these around. Like I've got one in South Jordan that I did, and also in West Point, and one in Salt Lake that you can see if you'd like to see what the building looks like when it's finished. This one would obviously meet the architectural design standards for this community. That's always a name that I have as an architect. And one of the things that we would mention is we've also really strived to accommodate the pedestrian path, the bicycle access. One of the things that we do intend to do on the final is to slightly enlarge the footprint of the building towards the rear of the site by about 2 feet in each direction to accommodate employee bike parking and also some additional equipment use for the actual maintenance, because we're trying to keep it a nice, pretty site, so we don't want to have that equipment flowing out onto the outside of the building.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I don't know which direction I'm looking at. I believe that's north.
Yes, that is north. Up is north on this
to
one.
To the north, the drive aisle lines up, right? It goes through the building. But to the east, the entry there, it doesn't. It looks like there's some kind of a bay parking, something where they would kind of jog around it as they pulled in. It doesn't exactly line up, right? Am I misunderstanding that? But as they came through here and they turned in, they have to go around this. Is that correct?
So it's actually an extra wide drive aisle on purpose, and part of that is that rear area behind the building is so that we can accommodate larger vehicles. One of the things that we found with our West Point store was even the city wanted to be able to bring in some of their fleet vehicles, and there's other operations that might have fleet vehicles that they need repair, and that allows us to have those larger vehicles be able to be serviced.
My concern isn't for the smaller vehicles. It is for when there is a larger RV or something that is there parked. It's outside, right? That's not a...
Yeah, so that does actually have a roof over that area.
I'm concerned about the pinch point for your trash and vehicles that would come in, as you've got your garbage that is in that back corner. So this would likely be the entrance that they would use, as it's a straight shot to get there. They wouldn't likely come from the north, because that would be a big turn to get over to the garbage. I'm worried about a pinch point.
Yeah, and we do actually have enough space there, if you can see on the to the south of that we could actually grow that, like maybe curve out that drive aisle to accommodate the routing to go around it. The main comment that we heard from a lot of people was that they'd like to be able to pull these larger vehicles straight in without having to do weird maneuvering, and so it's easier to move the smaller vehicles around than it is the large vehicles, as you might guess.
But conceptually, I was just make sure you consider that garbage, how they pick it up, how they take it out, their ingress and egress, and how they get around your lot.
True. And just to add to what Brittany was discussing, obviously this is not a final site.
For sure.
You know, once we have our civil engineer and landscape architect signed on for the staff will actually get to do the final site review, and we'll be meeting all their comments. So obviously any comments from the Planning Commission, we're quite happy to try to do our best to accommodate your concerns.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, what's the conditional use approval? Did I miss something there?
The setback.
It's just a setback.
Well, it's the usage, because the zoning matrix for this usage under this zone does require planning commission approval,
Conditional use.
conditional use.
Right, so there is, so this zone does not typically allow.
It's not a build
for-
by right, yes, that's right. It's one that you, your commission gets to review and ensure it meets the intent of the zone.
Felt like that got glossed over a little bit.
Well, I can feel Brittany about to say this because she always does. It's a conditional use in this zone, meaning it is permitted, but we can put conditions on this type of use.
Okay.
I could hear you. I could feel it
You can
coming
feel
from you,
the
Brittany.
energy.
So it's not like this is it's a permitted use, but it's
We can
conditionally
do
permitted.
conditions. Like I would like to see a pool in the back. Can we do
Sure.
that?
That's a reasonable request, right?
Well, you know, the BMWs need to go somewhere, right?
Right, that's right. Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. This is a public hearing. Sorry, we're done with you for a moment. This is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak to item 4.9, this is your chance. Seeing none, we will close public hearing. Were there any online? Okay, then we will keep it closed. Any further discussion or a motion?
I'll do a motion. Item 4.9, public hearing and consideration of Big O Tires request for conditional use approval of an exception to the setback limit for the Big O Tires concept plan located at 4193 West Orinda Drive. I move that we approve with the findings. The proposed concept is consistent with the Lehi City Development Code, and it conforms with the goals and policies of the general plan, and please include all DRC comments.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Brittany, 4.10. Thank you.
4.10, public hearing and recommendation of, I should practice saying these names before. Malika's LLC's request for amendments to the Postal Customs Development Agreement. So this is a development agreement that was approved, I think last year. And it was with the person who is leasing the property, not the property owner. So the property owner is just proposing to change it to be with them. Really, that's the only changes, is changing the name, and then throughout, instead of saying business, saying owner. Yeah, with that, I'll turn it back to the commission for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Yes. Does this give the owner the ability to put in any company, any business that they choose to do?
Yeah, so it'd just be any business that falls under the use of automobile sale and rental.
Okay, so as long as it fits the codes, works, they can make changes to that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Is the applicant present?
My name is Dusty Yates, and thank you for working with me. So it was in May, just the Lehi City Council already completely approved it in May, and it was absolutely perfect. It was my mistake. I just didn't add the owner's name to it as well. So that's all I'm asking, is just add the owners. And then in here it actually said U-Hauls, and no one liked the U-Hauls, so we took the U-Haul out. So it excludes U-Hauls. And then one other person mentioned the park strip looked kind of ugly. So I personally, if you guys drove by there, hand dug it out 180 feet today and yesterday and the day before. So it's I'll have Dalton Downs bringing in a load of probably 6-inch minus rock, so it'll be really pretty on the park strip. And that's it. Just the name change.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you. This is a public hearing for item 4.10. This is your chance to speak to this item. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Were there any comments online? I should ask you before I close the public hearing. All right. Any further discussion or a motion?
I'll make the motion. Bo's very good at making motions. I'm glad he's up here with us.
I'm limiting myself from here on out.
He's about to jump.
I know. Mr. Chair, make a motion on item 4.10, public hearing and recommendation of Malika's LLC's request for amendments to the Pro Steel Customs Development Agreement. I move that we recommend approval of the development agreements, and please include all DRC comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that'll move forward to City Council. 4.11.
Right, item 4.11, public hearing and recommendation of Kenneth Blaud's request for review of the Cold Spring Ranch area plan amendment to allow short-term rentals. And I know that this is one where we have a lot of online public comments. So reading through some of those, I want to start with maybe some background and things. So this is coming before you because there was an enforcement issue on some of these. So the city sent out notices saying, you know, you're not allowed to have a short-term rental. And so when they call and we talk about remedies, it's either you just stop doing it or you propose to change the code, which is anyone has that legal right. And a lot of people do that when there's a code enforcement issue. You know, they're like, I want to keep doing what I'm doing, so I am coming to the city asking for permission to do it. So that's what this is, right? It's them trying to come into conformance by changing the requirements. So the proposal would be to allow short-term rentals in the residential zones in the Cold Spring Ranch area plan. Currently, it's listed as being allowed in commercial, but not allowed in residential. And the proposal would also conform to the Lehi City requirements for short-term rentals, which I'll just briefly go through these. So short-term rentals can't be located within 600 feet of an elementary, middle school, or junior high. It has to be the primary residence of the applicant, which means they have to live there the majority of the year. And we have ways that we verify that, and also that's something that we'll enforce with the code if it's not their primary residence. So what that normally looks like is they're renting out a portion of their home as a short-term rental. It can look like we've had, I think, just one where it was a couple going on a mission for like 2 years, and so they wanted to lease out their property as a short-term rental. And so we allowed that too because it was still their primary residence. They were just gone for a period of time. So that's what that means. And then there's a limitation of no more than 10 individuals, but usually it's more limited by parking. And the parking requirement is 1 off-street parking spot per room that's rented. So it can't be a street parking spot. It has to be off-street, and 1 per room. So it limits how much can be rented out as a short-term rental. And then there also has to be curfew and quiet hours. So, yeah, the proposals to conform with those things. I guess one other thing, and Craig can talk more about this, but a big question comes up of, well, if the CC&Rs don't say it's allowed, what can the city do or whatnot? And as a city, we don't really consider what the CC&Rs are. We're not enforcing them. It kind of is separate. That's on the HOA, and we just look at the area plan, which is kind of, it becomes kind of part of the development code for this area, and that's what we enforce and look at. And with that, I'll turn it back to the commission for any questions.
Chair, if I may, with regards to that, so looking at the differences between HOA rules, CC&Rs, and city code, the city code could say you can only have 3 dogs, right? We'll use that as an example. You cannot have more than 3 dogs. If CCNRs say, in our development, anyone who buys a home here has to sign the CCNRs, and our CCNRs say you can only have 2 dogs. If someone is found to have 3 dogs in the HOA can come to the city and say, hey, they have more than what our CCNRs say, and the city says, great, that's a private action between 2 private parties based on a contractual agreement. Now, we don't enforce CCNRs. We enforce city code. So if, for example, we allow short-term rentals, rentals under that definition, that doesn't mean that it's going to be allowed in an area that if there is a CCNRs or if there's a private contract between the parties, we just don't enforce that. Now, if we don't allow short-term rentals, and we find out about it, that's when we will enforce our law. But we don't enforce CCNRs, so just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? All right, is the applicant present?
Hi, I'm Kenneth Glott. I'm just here to answer any questions you guys may have for me.
I'm really glad that you said your name because I said gold many times in my head.
I get that.
I am so sorry.
I get that more times than you.
Okay, I'm glad that you said it before I did. So, any further information that you wanted to share? Brittany does a great job, so don't put her down. She's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. That was pretty much covered by her. I just want to add that testimonies from next door neighbors have been mostly positive. I have not had issues with neighbors that that know that we have, because my residence is basically that I use the basement as an Airbnb, and right now I'm just allowed to have a long-term rental as an Airbnb, and they know my policy is basically adhering to the city guidance, which is I don't tell my tenants to park outside or in street parkings. I tell them this is your, they have a side, one side of my driveway, which is where they park their car. They do not park the car inside the garage. They're told they're only allowed to have one vehicle, and as part of the agreement. And inside the garage, they do not park, and we don't have a car that can block them on their way out or as they come in. So that was basically something I wanted to add. Yeah.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, we'll have you sit down, and if there's something that comes up, we'll invite you back. I have a clarification question for staff. Short-term rentals are allowed in Lehi with those rules and regulations that we talked about as far as parking and things, and per code, it's any residential area. However, Cold Springs Ranch has a different governing plan of their area, which is why this is an issue. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it kind of is an interesting thing. A lot of the area plans were established before Airbnbs really became a thing, so they don't address it because they just were too old. Cold Spring Ranch was kind of right around the time that they were becoming a thing, so it is interesting that it's in commercial, not residential. But yeah, it's just because the area plan specifically doesn't allow it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask for clarification on that. It sounds like I incorrectly assumed that short-term rentals would be governed by the general plan and how that's mapped out. It sounds like I'm wrong with that. And based on what Tyson said, short-term rentals are just allowed Lehigh-wide.
Yeah. If they meet the parking requirements and other
Yeah.
factors.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yep. So
Okay.
we made the decision to just allow it across the board, and yeah, they just have to apply and show that they meet all of the requirements, the primary residency and parking. Yeah.
So if we just allow it Lehigh wide,
Except in areas where there's an overlay zone.
An overlay
or
area plan.
An area plan that doesn't allow, or something that's, as part of coming in with their plan, the developer, put that limitation.
thank you. So that's why this is here before.
I would imagine.
Because that's what Cold Spring Ranch has.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the area plan doesn't. Kim might know and be able to correct me, but I don't think it's listed in the residential table, which is kind of the interesting thing. So if it's not listed, then it's kind of assumed to not be allowed to. But it's not like they're saying it's not allowed. It's just not there, from what I understand.
Yeah, and same with our table of uses. If a use isn't listed on the table, it's assumed to be not allowed.
Maybe this might be for the applicant, but was this a lot of calls saying we don't like this, or is this the neighborhood would like to be able to have short-term rentals?
So it did come from code enforcement. There were complaints about it to us, like there's this illegal short-term rental, and so we sent a letter. That's our standard code enforcement process of, you don't have a you don't have a permit for this, then we say it's not allowed in the area plan, so you just have to stop and to contact us. And so in contacting us, it was like, well, you either stop or you amend the area plan, which is why they proposed to amend the area plan. Does that answer your question?
We're in charge of amending their area plan?
So the applicant submitted to amend the area plan for Cold Spring Ranch. And Cold Spring Ranch is, the area plan is part of like our
Development code.
Okay.
So they're proposing to amend, it's just like a development code amendment, really. It's, we're just amending the governing bodies for this part of the city. Does that
Similar
kind of
to
make
other
sense?
large areas like Sky, in other
Okay.
areas, they have a governing area plan with potentially different uses and also design standards, et cetera, that are a little bit unique to those areas. The Cold Springs Ranch had one as well. They had an area plan that was approved a decade ago, however long ago. It was a long time ago. And now they're asking if they could amend it.
So in addition to that, I'm gathering that Cold Spring Ranch also has CCNRs that does allow short-term rentals.
I'm not sure whether it does. It's my understanding it doesn't, but I don't live there. I didn't sign those, and really
Based
don't.
on the online
I don't
comments,
want to
it
know.
does not appear.
Because
That's not our
that
purview.
doesn't apply to me. We do not enforce CCNRs.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Sorry, was there any other questions for staff or the applicant? Okay. This is a public hearing. I anticipate there may be some comments that would like to be made. This is your chance to do so. Public hearing is open.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here.
State your name.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
Yes.
no, you're
My name is Brianna Hicken. We live in Cold Spring Ranch, and we were operating a short-term rental because we had called the city to ask if they were allowed, and we were told that they were, because the city didn't ask us where we lived or knew that this area plan was going to be something deterring us from operating that. So about 6 months ago, we were contacted to take down the listing, and I know you don't want to go into the CCNRs, but it was a whole back and forth of like, how can we move forward, because there are property owners who have invested time and money into starting this up, and we're looking at the city code. We were looking that we were given a green light by the city to do it, so we wanted to move forward with that. Anyway, I have written something out because I am going to get flustered, so I'm just going to be reading, but at the end, if you have any questions, clarifying questions, feel free to ask.
Okay.
Anyway, Okay, the community's area plan is currently at odds with the community's bylaws and Lehi City's code. It has caused confusion and frustration for any homeowners looking to pursue the option for owner-occupied short-term rentals responsibly. We are trying to correct the situation and find a path forward to protect the financial freedom and private property rights of members in our community. There have been claims made that short-term rentals benefit a few at the expense of the community, which I believe is misleading, particularly when it's applied to owner-occupied short-term rentals that comply with Lehi City Code. Any homeowner who meets city requirements and receives HOA approval may operate an owner-occupied short-term rental as an exclusive privilege. Just as it would be unreasonable to condemn all long-term rentals due to a few bad actors, it is unfair and ineffective to broadly blame short-term rentals as a category. Policy should address behavior and enforcement, not labels. Owner-occupied short-term rentals provide homeowners financial stability by helping offset mortgages and keeping owners invested in their homes and communities. Utah-based research shows short-term rentals make up a small share of housing and have minimal impact on affordability compared to broader supply constraints. Short-term rentals are subject to stronger accountability than many long-term rentals, including registration, permitting, quiet hours, and parking requirements. On-site owners can address issues immediately, avoiding prolonged enforcement or eviction processes that may be experienced with long-term renters. Owner occupancy also encourages better property maintenance, faster issue resolution, and preservation of neighborhood character. Guest reviews and direct oversight further incentivize responsible management. Additionally, short-term rentals support local businesses and meet short-term housing needs without increasing density or requiring new development. In conclusion, research studies show that clear regulation of owner-occupied short-term rentals is more effective than prohibition, resulting in better compliance, stronger enforcement, and improved cooperation between homeowners, HOAs, and the city. For these reasons, we seek to amend the area plan to align with Lehi City Code and existing community bylaws while protecting the financial freedom and private property rights of Cold Spring Ranch homeowners. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
My name is Bruce Hillary. I have a townhome in the Cold Spring Ranch area. I bought it 2 months ago, and I am glad that I signed a conditions and requirements with them that does not allow the short-term rentals. And there's 4 reasons, I guess. The first one is just my feeling of being out in my neighborhood. As you know, the townhomes are stacked right next to each other. And if I'm standing on my driveway and the owner of the home next to mine comes out, I'm only like 3 feet away from that person, right? Mm-hmm. And it's nice to know and recognize a person that's that close to me where I'm out of my property. And it's just a feeling of, I guess, security, that you know the people that are going to be right next to you and when you're out in your yard. The other thing is the parking issue, and that's been somewhat addressed by the previous person, but right now there is, after 8 p.m. in Cold Springs, there is no visitor parking available. If I come in late, I have to park up on a city street and then walk down to my place. The other thing, I think it's, if you have people in and out of the place, you're likely to have more noise. And right now what we call our backyard is about 10 feet wide, and then we're right next to the next person. And so it's easy for there's more people occupying the home next door, there's going to be more noise. And then I'll just ask a question when I'm done, if you could. So my first
You're doing great.
meeting,
You're doing great.
and I'd just like to know what the various parties are here. I kind of get the city attorney, and I think your roles. I'm just not familiar with this side over here. Thank you.
We'll address that.
My name's Riley Perry. I have a written statement to you because I'm also very nervous. I'm a resident of Cold Spring Ranch, and I currently serve as the HOA president. I am not here speaking on behalf of the HOA or the board. I do feel like it has given me a lot of public exposure to opinion in our neighborhood, as well as I have a very unique perspective on what we experience in our neighborhood as I deal with the behind closed doors issues. So respectfully, I'm opposed to the proposed area plan amendment. Our community is an extremely high density master planned community that was not designed to accommodate this sort of a thing. We have somewhere between 1,050 and 1,100 homes in our neighborhood, most of which are townhomes. Well over 60% are townhome multifamily units. So for me, the limiting factor is physical design and structure of our community. About 85% of our homes are on extremely narrow, to be precise, 24-foot wide private HOA streets, not city streets. On-street parking is prohibited on almost all of them. There are certain sections that have parking on one side of the road. Granted, SDRs require off-street parking. Kind of my point being, you'll see between me and others probably, is parking in our community in general is a nightmare and has been always. We have about 25 homes that have addresses that actually are on or front of public street out of the entire community, and that's it. And of those, even those public streets have extremely limited or no parking allowed by the city. Some of them are because of bike lanes, and others are around corners. So even the small amount of public streets we have are congested. We only have about 167 shared parking community stalls, mostly obviously in the townhome concentrated areas, but for our community and our area plan, that's about one off-street parking stall per house is all. When Cold Spring Ranch was approved and designed and built by D.R. Horton, my understanding is that the parking standards were actually different and the requirement was less than it is now, and that if our community was built today, the developer would have been required to reduce housing and add parking infrastructure. Okay, so then some of my biggest concerns with this are governance and enforcement limitations. Currently, to kind of clarify some of the unknowns, our HOA documents, governing documents, do rely on the area plan. When it talks about land usage, it specifically cites the area plan. So for me, as a resident, if we were to amend the area plan, that is going to force an action on the HOA to have to go amend CCNRs, which again is your concern. As a resident and being involved with that, I'm concerned with that because we are not prepared to do that. We don't have the resources to do that. An important thing to note that I would hope staff could help clarify as well is accessory dwelling units, ADUs, are not allowed in something like 60 or 70% of our neighborhood. And I don't know if that comes from the area plan or what part of the city code that is, but I've seen a map that bars most of our community from having ADUs, which isn't always hand in hand with SDRs. But the better SDRs that are like a basement apartment setup would be an ADU versus renting a room in a townhouse is not an ATU or ADU. Right now, there's no reliable mechanism to identify non-compliant STRs. We currently have, from my understanding, somewhere between 10 and 12 illegal STRs in our neighborhood as found on Airbnb.com specifically. The listing is generally obscure identifying features, and enforcement either relies on neighbors getting upset and going to the HOA and or the city. And from what I have personally seen, none of the SDRs that were operating in our neighborhood once they were notified by the city and or the HOA, ceased their operations while they seek to get in compliance. From what I understand, they are all still operating. Many of those listings also, not all, but many of them list the HOA's amenities such as the pool and the clubhouse for usage. And all of those units have also already been responded to and asked to remove that, and a lot of them have not. And then on that note, we have some people who are pursuing the amendment that have communicated with the HOA and some of the residents, and have tried to have good plans in going forward. There are others that the HOA has started fining them and escalating those fines, and they are being viewed as a cost of doing business. So the HOA enforcement actions have been extremely limited, and our ability to actually control it or moderate it has been pretty much impossible. And then probably like my biggest frustration with this is the public notice for this amendment has been less than optimal. I got looped into this by our planner in our area, and then I asked when the community would be notified, and I was told they will not be because the applicant did not want to incur the expense of notifying it. And I said, hey, from where I sit, and I'm the HOA, or a huge community, the community should probably know that's going to cause all of us a lot of trouble. And ultimately, they ended up mailing a notice because I asked them to, of which those only hit mailboxes starting last Friday. Most people in our neighborhood that I know of aren't even aware that this is on the table. So I do feel like the public notice has been lacking. And then to the city planning department's credit, they did say, hey, we haven't really run into this kind of a situation, and the notice on an area plan amendment, the requirements are kind of gray. And they said, what they said to me was internally they were going to go look at actually amending that process to ensure that an amendment required a formal written notice. And then finally, I submitted some written documentation, but the amendment is not consistent with the Cold Spring Ranch area plan with other parts of it. It introduces commercial lodging into residential zones and would function as a de facto spot planning, which would benefit a very limited subset of properties while remaining infeasible for the vast majority. A lot of our townhomes and even some of our single-family homes physically lack the space to build off-street parking, and it would not be feasible for the very large, vast majority of our community. So I would urge the commission not to recommend approval to the city council. That said, if any amendment was to be recommended, I would encourage looking at our zoning plan and only approving it for the land use district LD1, which is a very small subset of our community that is a low density setup. But even most of those homes are on private streets, not city streets. So long and short of where I'm coming from is we don't have the infrastructure in our community. The developer knew that. The developer specifically built it that way. And in my conversations with the city about other issues affecting our community, there's a lot of frustration with how it was built and designed by D.R. Horton because it lacks infrastructure. And I'm sure some of you, especially the ones that have been on the commission longer, have physically been in our community. If you drive through our community, the public streets are littered with cars. The driveways are full of cars. All of the parking spots the HOA provides are completely full of cars. Probably one of the biggest issues we have in our neighborhood is towing cars, as it happens quite often. So I would respectfully oppose.
Thank you.
Oh, hi. My name is Sheila Millette. I live in Cold Spring Ranch as well. I did serve on the board. I retired because it was giving me gray hairs, so not about that life. One thing I do want to point out, because there's kind of like an intersection between ADUs and short-term rentals. A lot of people are proposing that they do ADUs in their basement, right? So, I don't know if you guys recall, but there was a state law that said, hey, you can't do like banned zones, but we'll grandfather any home that was recorded previous to that year will still be like banned from having an ADU. And then moving forward, if your lot was recorded after that, then like the general ban doesn't work, right? So a huge majority of our community was grandfathered like before that year. So they're not legally allowed to do ADUs, period, right? And then we know that ADUs are also not allowed in multifamily homes like townhomes. So the applicant who is asking you to allow his Airbnb has an ADU, and he's not legally allowed to do so. So that's when people are talking about like the de facto spot planning. That's what they're talking about. So really just a really small section, because we have like a bunch of multifamily townhomes, and then we have a bunch of like small cottages where there's not room to add, you know, an extra parking or whatever, or they wouldn't qualify for an ADU if they tried to permit with the city because their lot's not big enough because it's like 6,000 square feet or whatever. So really, it's a really narrow subset. So we're struggling because we have a lot of bad faith actors where they're like, hey, we have a townhome or whatever, and we're renting out our entire townhome as an Airbnb, and we're telling people you can have 10 guests, and yeah, use our pool and whatever, when we're like, hey, not the best idea. Okay, so, and speaking of our CCNRs and the area plan, they actually they're connected. So that's why that's a little bit relevant, because our CCNRs define the area plan as part of our governing documents for our HOA. So that means that any change to the area plan by definition is a change to our HOA's governing documents. And it's also important to notice that when homeowners bought their homes, they agreed to be bound by these governing documents, including the area plan. So our CCNRs rely on the area plan to define and apply land use classifications. So section 4.32D states that nightly rentals are considered a business activity and are only allowed if they are consistent with the residential land use classifications. So the area plan, where it talks about short-term rentals are allowed in commercial and not, residential. So that's a classification that our CCNRs point to and rely on. So by changing the residential land use classification that D.R. Horton established, and the regulations our bylaws point to, the city would be altering the meaning and intent of our bylaws without the HOA ever amending them. And so the bylaws were written with the understanding that the land use classification for residential zones excludes short-term rentals. So if the land use classification changes, our bylaws still function, but they would no longer do what they were intended to do, which means this amendment would effectively be a backdoor modification of our governing documents, regardless of who enforces them. And while it's true that our CCNRs also require HOA board approval for nightly rentals, that condition doesn't provide a clear or consistent standard for homeowners to rely on. So right now, the HOA can point to the area plan as the clear reason short-term rentals are not allowed in residential areas. If the area plan is amended, that standard disappears, so the only thing that remains is board discretion, which could change from one board to the next, even if the CCNRs don't change. So the only way to restore clarity at that point would be to amend the CCNRs themselves, but that isn't a realistic option for our board. Our CCNRs require an approval from over 66% of all homeowners, not just those who vote, which means more than 662 individual owners would need to positively approve of any change. So, and our HOA management company has warned us that reaching that threshold is almost impossible. So that's where the imbalance comes from, because this area plan amendment is being advanced by a handful of individuals, but fixing its impact on our governing documents would require a supermajority of homeowners to amend our bylaws, and that's already been established as nearly impossible. And I also wanted to point out that D.R. Horton recently amended our bylaws in 2022. Like, the short-term rentals were well established and understood at that point. And so that continued exclusion from residential areas shows this was a conscious policy decision, and it's not something that was outdated or whatever. And one of the main organizing, if you actually look to like the narrative when they were establishing the area plan, D.R. Horton established a clear progression of land use. They started with commercial areas, and they moved to higher density, and then lower density, and then yeah, and then lower, like commercial, high density, low density, right? So allowing short-term rentals in residential zones cuts across the structure and introduces lodging use into areas that were planned specifically for long-term residential living. And I also think that if you approve this amendment, it would set a precedent for other communities that rely on their area plans for residential land use boundaries, where it makes it harder for them to rely on their own area plans. Riley brought up infrastructure concerns, and circling back to the narrative from like D.R. Horton when they were establishing the area plan, they put a strong emphasis on amenities intended specifically for community residents, like the clubhouse, the pool, the park. So these facilities were planned, sized, and funded with the expectation that they would serve people who live in the neighborhood, not a rotating group of short-term guests. And I know that there are some, like Bree was like, yeah, like we make sure that they don't use the specific pool or whatever, but so many, I know, we love that. If you want to point me out, No. but I'm like, no, I'm not included in that. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I know there are some people who would enforce it, like Bree.
Keep your comments this
Sorry.
way.
So I know that there are some people who definitely would do that, but there are also, that's not every single person. So we've looked at all the Airbnb listings, and the majority of them do advertise our private community amenities, which is problematic. So, so we just want the ability to draw clear distinctions that are in our area plan, and not for our community not to be treated differently than like Holbrook Farms or other communities that have their area plans that also don't allow short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nick Hicken. I remember seeing, as I drive around first moving in Lehi, disband the HOA signs, and I was like, ooh, that looks like that got ugly. And it was just a little bit of a foreshadow of like, oh, wow, once our community has its own community members that are HOA, it might get ugly. And as people are speaking here, these are friends of ours, and things have gotten pretty tough. And it's like, we really don't want to see any of these friendships broken. And we, most of all, like the woman talked before about a vision for our community, what I hope most of all is that we could talk with each other and work things out. Because a lot of these issues are HOA issues that we're coming to you guys with. And it's not, So that's the vision I have for our community, is that we can deal with complaints at the local level and at the HOA level, but getting to what involves you guys with the area plan. First of all, what we understand, and when we moved here, we tried to study out as much as we could beforehand whether it was legal to do what we were going to do. We talked to city council members. We've talked to so many people. My wife has been the big researcher on this. In the CCNRs, which I know don't involve you guys, there's verbiage in there that says if you comply with the code, you will be able to do short-term rental. So that we went on that, good faith of that. They can say that it didn't. I don't think it's a concern that the area plan amendment would affect having to hire lawyers to change these CCNRs. The other part about ADUs and short-term rentals, again, what we understand, you can't have both at the same time. And so if you are allowed to do, if you choose one or the other, so if you do short-term rental and you meet the code, then you can do a short-term rental. The other big part is where we care a lot about the community and working things out with each other is parking, of course, is very difficult. We're happy to help with that. There's a lot of concerns that people will use the amenities, the community amenities like the pool and stuff. We're completely happy to do the HOA agreements that that should not be allowed. When it comes to parking, though, long-term renters are the ones that are by far the most are going to take up the most spots. Doing a short-term rental is going to limit you and have more regulations on that, on how much parking spaces you can take up. We heard about in the townhome, there's a regulation you can't even do on-street parking. If you are a bachelor and you rent out to a bunch of your friends, you can have 4 cars on the street. I mean, even more than that. And I have nothing against the bachelor that I would do that. I wish I could have done that as a bachelor. So we have nothing against that. There's problems that need to be dealt with the parking, again, HOA-related issues. For the area plan, like we said, we have tried to do everything that the city has told us to do. We're just here to have the area plan meet the city's code, and instead of just closing off all of the opportunities that we could have, that we should be allowed to have, based on the city's code, there were some complaints for short-term rentals in general, not owner-occupied short-term rentals, and that's what we're here about today is owner-occupied, which is a very small group of people, and the benefits have been shared about that of how much more accountability owner-occupied people who are always there at their home have than regular short-term rental. That's a whole other argument about the problems that are caused by short-term rentals, and I think they're the ones that are doing the infractions. I know from the owner-occupied members of our community I know, we have been going the full length to try and do this responsibly. And yes, we're continuing to still operate because we're seeing how things play out. So anyway, that's just all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kendra Bunn. I am also a resident in Cold Spring Ranch. I, at first, also was kind of confused with the owner-occupied and not, but I appreciate the explanation you kind of gave to kind of clear that up. I just want to say I'm a new provider at Primary Children's Hospital right there in Lehi, and our community is just down the street. And there is such a need for short-term rentals in this area. There are a lot of families who travel far distances and need a place to stay that's not just a hotel. They need like somewhere with like a kitchen or a nice bedroom or park nearby. So I think having short-term rentals in this area will be very beneficial to families. And I also am a neighbor in the townhome, and I have seen other renters from short-term rentals that maybe weren't supposed to be there or not, but they have all been very positive. One renter from the short-term rental was like this cute couple who just graduated graduate school and just had relocated to Utah and needed a couple weeks to kind of find their new long-term place that they were going to live in. And it was really cool to meet them because they were international, so we got to take them on a hike. And I think overall the experience of short-term rentals, they are like going to be good. And I think there may be steps to changing the CCR, but I feel like the first step is just to fix this amendment. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That's my comment.
Anybody else? Oh, got one.
So, my name is Morgan Cotter. I am a resident of Cold Spring Ranch. I moved into the community maybe 2 years ago, and I just have a little family, me and my wife, and we just had a baby like 5 months ago. And so one of the things that was brought up actually in this amendment or this proposal was the issue of affordability. There's the common conception that Airbnbs increase the price of homes, the cost of rent, all those things. You've seen that in Park City with all those high touristy areas. But there's a reason why Lehi City and other cities across Utah and nationwide have decided that owner-occupied is the gold standard. There's a law, Cornell Law School has done a study actually on the gold standard of having Airbnbs be owner-occupied because it combats the issue of affordability. With this, I mainly mention this because Cold Spring Ranch actually has maybe up to 20% of long-term rentals, which as Nick mentioned earlier, has caused a lot of these parking issues with these long-term renters having 4 renters, 4 cars in the community. If you're looking at a short-term rental, you're only looking at 1 car, 1 family that's coming to go to the Primary Children's Hospital or just trying to visit their grandparents or their family members in the community. We want to provide a way for people to have a kitchen, 1 or 2 bedrooms, and all the parking is off-street parking. It's not going to be affecting the visitor parking, and we want to work closely with the HOA and the CCNRs to make sure that parking is properly enforced. There was mention of like 10 guests coming to an Airbnb. That's no way allowed or possible. with the amount of rooms that are available in the apartments or townhomes and single families, as you need at least one bedroom per person, one parking spot per bedroom, which is in the statute. There's also the issue of CCNRs have to be changed if Airbnbs are allowed. I don't think that's the case. There's actually a statement in the CCNRs that says you need a business license to operate an ADU or STR, which I think they were alluding to the fact, why would they mention having a business license if they didn't consider the fact of having potential commercial or Airbnb business use? Because I just see just so much opportunity with the area and with the city to offer STRs in the community. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say, and thank you.
Anybody else? I know there were plenty of comments online. Let's give a summary of those. I promise you I have read them.
Mm-hmm.
We were given them in advance, but let's give a summary of them.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just summarize, because I think a lot of them are from people who already commented. So there was a lot against, and there was also a lot for. A lot of people did mention concerns about housing affordability. Yeah, let's see. And then there's some that are, the positive experiences that they've had staying in Cold Spring Ranch, short-term rentals. Some people are saying they intentionally purchased in Cold Spring Ranch because there was no short-term rentals. And then, some people just saying they would support. And I guess question, does owner occupied mean the rented property has to be the owner's primary place of residence? If so, I can see an argument for housing affordability, some of the stuff that's already been mentioned. Again, the streets are narrower, affordable housing, different thoughts back and forth on that. Concerns about parking, support. I don't think, I read through all of them too. I don't think that there's really anything much different than what was shared. I'll scroll through so you can just kind of see all of the comments, but yeah, I guess should maybe look for numbers, support and against, but there was a pretty good mix of both. Did you have anything else? It goes on for a while, so.
26. Just wanted to note that we have read these. We have looked through them all. But I did want to make sure they get put into the record. But I will close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission. Well, actually, let's bring the applicant back up first. You've heard quite a bit. Do you want to address anything that you've heard?
Well, I have a few thoughts in mind. First of all, it just common sense wise, I'm kind of at a loss here. It's kind of like I hear on one side of the discussion is talking about the short-term rentals being detrimental to the, our area plan, our community, our families, people being concerned. I just don't see the difference between that and long-term rentals. How can somebody who can stay in your property renting for 12 months or more be less dangerous to the community than someone who stays there for 24 hours or less, or maybe couple of days? I assure you, as a Airbnb user, we did we did take down the listing as soon as we got the letter. I'm not one of those that are still doing it. And if we were to put it back, it'll be as a long-term rentals, because we do have the option to shift the listing to be 30 days or longer for the state. As far as the parking spaces and, you know, the issue with that, you have to understand you are providing a service. In an application, you have a tenant who's coming sometimes from outside the country. I've had tenants coming from Germany to visit our major cities, including Park City. You don't want that person to just go. You don't want to tell that person just go park in the streets. You are trying to make sure to provide the best accommodations to that tenant. So you have either a garage to put that person's one vehicle, because it's usually a rental that they get from the airport, or somebody who's just traveling and they need a place to crash on the way to California, just as an example. So you provide either a parking lot inside your garage, a parking space, or one side of the driveway. You don't tell them, go and park in the streets. So that logic to me it's self-defeating, that we will tell our tenants, just go park in some of the visitor parking lots. That does not happen. As far as 10 people, it kind of blew my mind. Like, I do rent the basement. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-month pregnant wife. I'm not in I don't rent a room because it's just not how we planned it. We do rent the basement, and the basement has the kitchen. It has a washer and dryer stack set, and we know exactly how to make sure that the people that are staying there are comfortable, and we do have a limit. We do have a limit of 2 people staying per stay. So the notion that 5, 6, 7 people, it's hilarious. I'm just expressing myself here. As far as what we got from our HOA, as far as letters, I got an email response saying, we're not going to get involved in this. Just leave us out of the equation. We never had a chance to just, have a meeting, just sit down and talk to them and hear their concerns. We just got to just leave us out of it. Just do your thing. We're out of the equation. And that was pretty offensive to us, because you pay your HOA so that they work with you. And in that case, we just felt left out. And also the notion that we are offering the amenities, no, we don't do that, because we know best. As a homeowner, you also want to make sure that your family is safe, and you make sure that the application meets the requirements and can run background checks on all the people that are wanting to come and stay in your property. You don't just invite anybody because it's your family. That's the reason why it's owner occupied, I assume. You don't want to just invite whatever. So you're trying to make sure that what you do not only stays in compliance with city code and area planning, but also safe for you and the communities, because you're trying to make sure your neighbors don't get disturbed. There is quiet hours. There is available parking space for tenants that is off the streets. There is a limit of people that can come and stay. There is also common sense. You don't want to affect your own area. It's like self-detrimental to you. You don't want to destroy your whole community. And that's just a few thoughts I just wanted to share with you guys.
Any questions for the applicant? No. All right. Thank you. Discussion, thoughts, motion, feelings?
I definitely have thoughts on all sides of kind of the issue. I currently live in an HOA, and my husband served on the board of the HOA, so I know what that's like. I also understand wanting to be able to, do what you want and what you can, right, within reason with your own property. I think the individuals that have spoken here, they might be doing a good job maintaining, but if we open up that can of worms, what about the next owner? What about the next tenants? You know, those that purchase the home down the road. There's no guarantee that they're going to hold the same standard. I don't know if affordability is a really good argument in my mind, because it does seem like there's probably a very small, I mean, ignoring the spot zoning piece, but in the homes that are in there, are there really a lot of families that have the ability or have the space to be able to rent out a room or a basement? So I don't know if that really sways me one way or another. But that wasn't an answer one way or another. But those are my thoughts. That's what came to mind just as we were listening through and reading through the comments that came in. So,
Can you, staff, could you define short-term versus long-term? Is it the 30-day?
Yeah, short term does specifically state that it's less than 30 days.
Less than 30 days.
Yeah, and so then an ADU becomes like what's more than
At that
30
point,
days.
if it's 31 days, it's an ADU. I mean, I know we've all stayed in short-term rentals, so I'm thinking about staying longer than a month. It's a long time. Parking. So it has to be off the street?
Yeah.
Can it be
In tandem?
tandem,
No.
or does it have to be side by side?
Yeah, it does say that tandem does not count for short-term rentals.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's something we review, right? So to have like a legal short-term rental, they have to submit all this application material to us, and we review it. They have to have a business license that they renew annually. So, you know, the ones that aren't, and it was kind of brought up, there's going to be some that just do whatever they want, right? And that's going to be a code enforcement issue either way. So, but yeah, to be compliant and to have a legal short-term rental, they have to have the off-street parking.
And is it one parking spot per bedroom? Right, and it's one person per bedroom too, right? Or is
We
it
don't
like
specify like how many people you could have in a bedroom.
for the bedroom? So
But it is one per bedroom.
You can put 5 in them, apparently.
that's what I was,
It's a joke. It's a joke. Sorry.
Yeah, I think
Once
like,
at 10, I was saying 2 bedrooms.
yeah, but like Lindsay said, right? If I rolled up in a 15-passenger van at a 2-bedroom short-term rental, I mean, pile out, you know, stop over from where I'm going, that could be an issue. I think you always have those outliers. And then I had, townhomes. So I don't see this being a problem with townhomes, because typically townhomes don't have a separate entrance.
So they don't have to have a separate entrance. That's an ADU requirement.
Okay.
For the short-term rental, because we did look at this, it used to be that it wouldn't work because we required a 2-car garage, 2 parking spots in the garage for the townhome, but we require 2 parking spots, and 1 has to be in a garage. And we used to say not in tandem, but the state said that we couldn't restrict tandem for townhomes, condos, things like that. So for the 2 required, because it has to be in addition to what's required, right? So for the 2 required, it could be the garage spot, and then if you have a driveway, the one behind it. And then you could only have a 1-bedroom, pretty much no matter what, right? And it would have to be either the garage or on the driveway. I mean, it could be either, but it just can't be in tandem, so you couldn't have 2 bedrooms. It'd just be the 1.
Okay, thank you. And one last 2-part question. Sorry, I apologize for. Are there other areas in the city that are like this, and would changing this particular one bring this into more conformity with the greater city at large?
Yeah, yep. So we do allow it in our code, so everything that's not part of an area plan, it currently is allowed as long as they meet the requirements. I know it was brought up like, well, all these other area plans don't allow it. And yeah, so, this wouldn't change those area plans. They're all separate, so they'd have to be proposed. If it sets some sort of precedence, I don't know. That might be a legal question. If you approve this one and then
We may be seeing others.
comes and they want to do it
Yeah.
I think it'll come up either way, because as people start to do it and we start enforcing the code, it's the way to remedy it without just stopping, right? So I think kind of inevitably you'll probably see these start coming up in different area plans.
Okay, thank you.
It's been referenced by public comment a few times, but I only see it once in the report that we're given. So to be very clear, we are just talking about owner-occupied STRs.
Yep. Well, and yeah, so primary residency is the wording we use. Owner occupancy we use for ADUs. Primary residency we use for short-term rentals. So there is a slight difference in that, but in a lot of ways it's the same.
I don't think that everyone's going to, if this is legal, that every single person in Cold Spring Ranch is going to start an Airbnb. You know, the people who are doing it are the people who are going to be doing it. So maybe this would alleviate some of the neighbor, you know, if it was legal, they wouldn't have to police their neighbors. And I think it would be the same number of people doing it, but I don't know why I'm looking at you, sorry. But at the same time, the Cold Spring Ranch was not built for this. Like, they don't have the bandwidth to accommodate this. So yeah, it's I can see both sides, and I sympathize with both sides. But I truly don't think that any more people would jump at the chance to have an Airbnb in their house if this was legal.
100% agree with you. Gun to my head, if I were to put forward a motion, I would approve with conditions right now. But I want to get a temperature check. How's everyone else feeling?
It would be a recommendation.
Thank you. Yes, good clarification. We are recommending body on this item. So our recommendation will go to City Council, just like with item 4.8.
We don't need temperature checks. Try us out.
All right. Motion for item 4.11, public hearing and recommendation of Kenneth Glaud's request for review of the Cold Spring Ranch Area Plan Amendment to allow short-term rentals. The recommendation being that we approve with conditions. The findings for the approval being that the amendment is consistent with the general plan and aligns Cold Springs Ranch with citywide residential land use policy. When limited to owner-occupied STRs, which are already regulated under Chapter 12. Additional clarifications and conditions are, once again, being very clear. Non-owner occupied STRs are primary, I believe, Brittany, you call them primary
residency.
Thank you. Those remain prohibited. Also, another point of clarification, HOA rules may impose additional restrictions which do not come before this body or the City Council, and please include DRC comments.
Can I adjust you a little bit?
Please.
You said you want to approve. We want to make sure the verbiage says recommend approval. I know that's what you meant, but that was it.
Good clarification. Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay. That was just me. Thank you. So it moves forward with a positive recommendation to the City Council. So we'll go forward. When?
27th. Yeah.
So we'll hit their agenda on the 27th of this month. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I don't think we addressed one of the questions that came up, who we are.
Oh,
on
yes.
this.
Yeah, let's do that.
Sorry, that was one of the more important questions here. Please introduce yourselves.
Yeah, so, yeah.
It's working right here. I'm Gary Ellis. I'm with the City Engineering Department here. I work in the development review, mostly is what I do. So I review a lot of these developments that come through. A lot of these I've seen come through. So.
And Kim Struthers, Community Development Director. So under my department, we have the Planning and Zoning, Building Division. So.
And I'm Brittany Harris. I'm one of the planners. So We have different areas of the city. Katie Bustle's the planner that's over the Cold Spring Ranch area. We are kind of your main point of contact. If you have any questions about the area plan or, anything that's coming to these meetings, we're happy to answer anything. You can call us, email us. We're the ones that work with applicants as they try and get things approved, and we're also here to help all the residents know the process and understand things.
So yeah, we're basically staff to the commission and the city council. Yep.
Thank you for all of your input. We appreciate it. 4.12. Hey, real quick. I'm going to make a motion that we have a 3-minute break
Second.
for a bathroom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Yeah. I was just looking. I was like, should we have done that right before that?
My
feet just barely reached the floor. So this is why I sit like this.
Yeah, because your legs are numb.
Yeah.
We need to get you a little bar.
I know. I need
We'll
a
find you
little,
bar.
a little boost.
We're all here, right? We're all here.
Yes.
Let's keep this rolling.
Before do we need to make a motion? We're going to run up into our 10:30 stop.
Oh no, Brittany's gonna get us out in time. But we will if we get
Their challenge accepted, huh?
I just saw Tyson do it once, and I thought it was pretty cool. So I thought, that was my chance.
You're welcome to make any motion you
I was
want.
doing it until 11 o'clock.
Doesn't mean it's gonna get approved.
All right, let's go. 412.
Okay. Item 4.12, public hearing in consideration of Century Communities' request for review of the Chew property concept plan, a 219-unit development located approximately 600 south, 2900 west. Sorry, I have to get to my notes. So they are showing 53 single-family homes and 166 townhomes. This is Pioneer Crossing, where it starts to bend, going down into Saratoga. The Jordan River's over here, so that's where we're looking. Auburn Springs is up here, and just give you some context. Right now, all of the current zoning for this is A5 and a little bit of RA1, and the general plan is VLDRA and ESA, environmentally sensitive area. So this would require a general plan amendment in either February or August to go to MDR or something else. Under the existing zoning, the max density would be about 25 units. And so right now they're showing 194 above what would be currently allowed by the zoning.
That's all? Sorry. Go ahead.
There's 56.5 acres total, and 32.6 of those are developable acres. So a lot of it's being left. You can see native open space. They're showing different proposed trails, connections to the Jordan River Trail. So I guess this is one of those interesting ones, right? It's a concept plan that doesn't meet the general plan, the zoning, more just feedback, but it is hard to prove something that doesn't meet what is existing in place. With that, I'll turn it back to the commission for any questions.
I have a question for staff. The transportation plan for the city does show a road roughly where this cul-de-sac is on the, is that the west? Right there. But it shows it connecting to Pioneer Crossing. What effect of that at all would this have on this plan?
I think it shows it more
to the east.
To the east, yeah. Not
The latest one I've looked at, which again has been a little while, but
Yeah.
it does show a connection roughly at that bend on Waterway, which is roughly right where this cul-de-sac is.
Yeah, I think last time I talked to Luke about it, it's a little farther to the east there.
Probably line up with the southern
Yep.
stub road.
Yep. And where UDOT will allow a signal there at Pioneer Crossing.
I think because of the curvature of Pioneer, and I don't know, there were a couple of different reasons that they've been revisiting exactly where that connection would take place. So.
Questions for staff? None. All right, applicant.
Thanks so much. I'm Tom Romney with Focus Consulting. We're an engineering and planning firm. I'm a landscape architect and civil engineer. I'm here just representing Century, which we also have here, and they're, in a way, representing a landowner. And so they're working with him, obviously, and we're working with them. And thanks for staying late. And, I think what's cool about the concept plan submittal is the ability to dialogue. And so you have a 10:30 cutoff. Is that correct?
We'll go as long as you need us, but yes.
Okay, which I want to respect that, and I appreciate that you guys come. I don't have to come. I come to a lot of these, but not as many as you, and so I understand how complex it is and listening to everyone. And when Brittany mentions that, it sounds pretty drastic to say we're allowed 25 units, and we're asking for 200 and what do I have in my notes? 53 single family and 166 townhomes. And so I just want to give more background to why we would plan it that way. And there's several complexities. I think some just important things to know. And I sent stuff to you, Kim, but maybe you didn't get it, and I don't really need it.
No, we do have.
We can we pull that up really quick?
Oh, yeah,
oh, there it is. All right.
Yeah,
so
I forwarded it to
we have
Brittany.
56 acres. So we can go to the next one. So just from a context standpoint, and we've obviously got Lehi, but then we've also got Saratoga. And so just paying attention to that this property is along Pioneer Crossings. Pioneer Crossing from this location is about 7 minutes to I-15 and about 7 minutes to Redwood Road. And I know that today there's traffic issues with Pioneer Crossing, but just as a planner and engineer, you can't ever solve the issue until it's an issue. And so I guarantee you from a local level and a state level, even though it doesn't feel good to residents, people are working on solving these issues. So just as a city, you do want to be mindful of where you're putting people. And here we are on a major traffic corridor. And so just being mindful of that and the location for people who are going to live here and their ability to get to different places. Another couple things on that plan. Sorry, stay there for a sec. Back one. We just wanted to note some trailheads for later, but you have an existing Jordan River trailhead pretty far to the north. So, sorry, zoom out. It's way up there and pretty far to the south. Those are existing trailheads to Jordan River. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then if you zoom out a little bit, and you are correct, there is a plan for a road, but in the UDOT world, they tell us where that intersection is going to be based on spacing and curves. So they have a planned signal right about there. It's definitely not where that cul-de-sac is. So it's definitely right in that location. And so that's also important. That's going to be important for the neighborhood. That's going to be important just for this community to get out. And so a couple other things. Let's move on. So they did a great job explaining the location and the land uses. Just something to pay attention to is that Saratoga has their future land use of that piece just to the south of us, where that major signal is going to be for Pioneer Crossing as regional commercial. And then they have heavy commercial across the street and medium density residential. And then in Lehi, you have low density residential to the east and then very low to the north. And so one thing what we're proposing is low density residential. And so even though that sounds like a big change, the big change is because of the environmentally sensitive area, which I want to talk a little bit about. But as far as density goes, What we're proposing is 3.9 units to the acre on the entire 56 acres. On that plan, it does show 6 acres. That's just showing the density for the actual developable area. But the reality is, if someone was to develop the entire 56 acres with this unit count, we're talking 3.9 units to the acre, which is equivalent to your R18 density. So just to give kind of apples to apples, and again, that's still more dense than the very low density, but that's in line with your low density residential. So just to be able to clarify that. So I think part of this discussion is the developers really want to do this in Lehi. They want to work with the planning commission and work with the council and try to figure this out. But obviously, like, the way I see it, we're kind of far apart in the sense of, like, if 25 units is allowed, and we're asking, and I'm going to explain a little bit more why, but we're asking for the 200, sorry, what is the total sale there? The
219.
219, yep. So if we're asking for 219, and right now we're allowed, without having to go through any of this, 25, like that feels like a pretty big gap. So we want to kind of work together in this forum to figure out, can we bridge, like, can we get close to what we're trying to do with this property. So some of the other challenges with this property is there is a significant amount of wetlands. Not all of those wetlands are jurisdictional. Some of them are still not determined if they're jurisdictional or not. And what that means is if there's jurisdictional, there's a pretty clear path of what you need to do. There is a path you can go through to remove wetlands and put them somewhere else. That's not the path we want to go down. So this plan has pretty much said we're going to respect all wetlands that are on this property right now, and those would all be dedicated as open space to the city. And so everything you kind of see is hatched is wetlands. And so the way it breaks down with this plan is you're getting 48% of the entire 56 acres as open space. 8% of that would be improved open space, and 40% of that would be native open space, including, cleaning up stuff along the Jordan River. So which is kind of how we end up at the low density, is just the amount of open space that would be dedicated with this project. A couple other things we just wanted to note is this property owner, like, he's a part of the Lehi. He's part of Lehi in the sense that he's owned this land, and he's worked with Lehi over time. For example, he provided an easement for the Jordan River Trail. He's provided the easement for 700 South. And so just, he's a part of the discussion. He wants, to make good decisions for his land. He feels like he's been a good steward with the city and worked with them. And so he just wants a chance to be able to have these discussions and figure out, like, what is going to work for him also. Like, he's going to have a say as we're talking to him and trying to figure out what to do with this property. And then just a couple other things that maybe aren't shown on this plan, but are things that we're willing to, like, would want to talk about is, we're open to adding places for new trailheads. Like, we're open to talking about, a trailhead for the Jordan River in this community. We do show 2 other spaces that could be developed. They're outside of wetlands, but we're not necessarily proposing anything on them today. And I think those are areas that are worth talking about. That's really more the current landowner is what he'd be willing to do there. But I think that's an area where we could definitely have trailheads, and we could even talk about, like, does that have to be developed or not? It's just not a part of Century's plan to develop that at this time. And then we are paying attention to the larger trail systems in the area and making sure that they connect to the Jordan River. And there's a couple tiny trails that would connect to major roadways and to get into our community. And then I think lastly, just to be aware of one complication of this project and this piece of land and kind of the complexity and its relationship to Saratoga is right now, and there's probably more discussion that we need to have with city staff over this issue, because we had a DRC meeting, this kind of got brought to light, and then we went and looked at it. But most of the sewer to the north and to the west is all going to the lift station and being pumped to the east. And so we were told that, well, for this project, our only access to sewer is to the east, which doesn't provide like, it wouldn't function. And we haven't had a chance to sit down since DRC. Like, DRC happens, and then this meeting happens. But one of the challenges of this property is, like, based off of that today, is we've been told you can't use the lift station. You have to take your sewer to the gravity system to the east, which is kind of right by those cul-de-sacs. The problem is that's only 6 feet deep, and by the time our property gets to the, not even to like the cul-de-sac single-family lots, by the time we get to the end of the townhomes, that sewer is going to be 7 feet out of the ground. So that's going to just be something that we're going to have to, I don't know how we figure that out. But I think if, like, from a land use standpoint, we can get to a close place, I feel like we could probably figure out the utilities. So I think that's my just general, here's the knowledge of the property. Like, this was not an attempt of how do we, like, I just think when people see townhomes, they assume we're trying to cram the most amount of units in a space. It's, when you get to a PUD, which is what this would have to turn into, it's, is this the right location for it? When you consider what Saratoga is going to be doing, where our location is to I-15, to Greater Lehi, to Provo, to Salt Lake, you know, is this the right product type? What I like about it is you have a lot of single-family lots in the area. We still want to buffer those single-family lots with similar-sized single-family lots. We've got 6,000s up to a 17,000 square foot single-family lot. I think some of that stuff is, you know, we could make tweaks. Then transitioning to townhomes that is eventually going to transition to a major commercial corridor. And it's kind of a weird place to be for me because I don't want to threaten anybody. That's not my intention, but it's like there's going to be this major commercial, like Saratoga is using this as a major commercial entry to their city. And so how do we work that into Lehi? And I think this is an important meeting and ability to work together, because I just think this is Lehi's chance to, with everything that's changed in this area, say what is going to be the best use for this location. And so the time and effort we've put into it, we think, you know, still being a low-density product, providing a variety of housing types. You know, these are not going to be townhomes that are, you know, the reality, this is not going to be an affordable community to meet like that kind of price point. But it is going to be very much in line with the neighborhood that's there and the type of, you know, people. We're talking young professionals, young families, people are trying to get home ownership. I guess I should make sure that you guys are good. But my understanding, and I'm 99.9% sure this is all for sale product. Nothing Century that I've done with them has been like a for rent product. It doesn't necessarily mean, based on that last conversation, there wouldn't be something like that, but that this is all a for sale townhome, a for sale single family unit. One other thing I forgot that would have to be figured out, if you guys liked this type of plan and were on board with this type of land use and density, is we'd have to work with Lehi to provide access to those cul-de-sacs. And our thought is, like, by integrating the current open space with our open space, and we're open to talking about, like, this is just kind of the first concept plan, that if we can start heading down this path, we'd love to have more discussions about how do we make this a great community that Lehi will be proud of. We'll answer questions, and then obviously I think you have to do a public, and then I'll let the developer, if they have anything.
Yeah.
You have to open that. Is it a public hearing?
Let me make a motion that we extend past our 10:30 curfew.
Or we're going to disappear.
Yeah, that would be great, which we don't want that to happen.
No, I turn into a pumpkin. So, Mr. Chair, may I make a motion that we extend past our 10:30 curfew until 11, shall we say?
Are you asking if you can? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we extend past our 10:30 cutoff time. To 11.
It has to have a time.
Okay.
It does?
We didn't do that in the past.
It has to have a time, or until we're done with all the items on the...
Until we're done with all the items.
Second.
Yeah.
Motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, sorry. Continue.
Well, I'm done for now. It's because it's a public hearing, correct?
Yeah, but let's do questions from us first. Do you guys have any questions? No questions.
Wait,
All right.
no, wait.
Questions.
Questions.
So, was there any, I mean, this took you a while, I'm sure, to come up with. What else did you talk about doing in this this is an odd shaped property that you've got here. You've got environmentally sensitive areas that you're trying to work around. Did you come up with anything else to do here?
Well, yeah. So I think, when you look at it, there's options. It's environmentally sensitive for wetlands, which most of these wetlands were created by the people who own the property. Like, it's tricky. If you have horses, a lot of the times there are certain uses for your property. You create wetlands over a period of time you don't realize, and then, groups much larger than us determine that now you have a wetland that you need to preserve, which is fine. But there are ways to, so like the other solution is there's ways to mitigate those wetlands, and then working on a plan that is like, single family in certain locations. And, but that's what's tricky is like, if you were to just do this plan with 25 units, it's not viable to put in the infrastructure to figure out the complexity of the sewer is not really viable with 25 units. And so, and I guess me as a planner and engineer, like I didn't come to debate the current land use of environmentally sensitive area, and I respect that that's why we've done what we've done is like, okay, let's try to preserve as much open space as we can. We're not even showing units on the Jordan River. And, we're saying, yeah, there could be some there someday, but I think that's worth a discussion. We would have to go back and talk to the landowner about something like that. But like, I think, being aware of the Jordan River is important, but a part of this is also the floodplain, and the floodplain is there now, but it can go away. It goes away a lot of the times with development. You just have to develop to a certain elevation, and it is why we've put most of the units up in that corner. But we play around with a lot of things to get to like, how do you get a variety of units? So, one thing that we're focusing on is a community that's just not all of the exact same thing. How do you buffer? And so, yeah, we played around with how many single family there are versus how many townhomes. How do you have enough townhomes to have a viable townhome community with an HOA that's going to function? And then we played around with those other pieces. I think just we are considering like what are they going to potentially do. We don't know what they're going to do in Saratoga, but kind of played around with some of that. So I don't have all those different maps, but I know this is concept E, F, or G.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, you can sit down.
Thanks so much.
This is a public hearing. Anybody in the public that would like to speak to this item 4.12? This is your chance. Seeing none. Brittany, were there any online comments? Well, there were. Trust me,
Just
there
not
were.
for this one.
I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for further discussion.
I have sort of maybe a clarification question that I can probably answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Can density be issued based on the total acreage or just what's developable?
Great question.
So it's based on what's in the general plan, the land use designation. So even in the environmentally sensitive areas, we have to we can't just say you can't do anything there because that would be a taking.
Okay.
So in that floodplain, wetlands areas, we still give 1 unit per 5 acres. So that's where we came up with the 25 is if you take, a lot of this is in that ESA. So all of that got the 1 unit per 5 acres. And then there's, to the far east, there's a piece that's out of the ESA that's in the VLDRA, and that's 2.5 units per acre. So we just took the total acreage, how much is in ESA, how much is in VLDR, gave the density numbers, and that's how we came up with 25.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts, questions, feelings? Concerns? Thought you might.
I don't know if this is kosher. I'll just address you. I really appreciate your comments. I appreciate the job that you have to do and try to get this approved. I mean, in good conscience, I can't approve it. The gap is crazy to me. Yeah, please. It's well, I appreciate that you want to make this a conversation. I feel like that's where we're going to get the most benefit here.
Yeah, so I guess when I look big picture planning, is Lehi. When I came to Lehi for the first time, Kim and I probably looked like this guy. And I just feel like Lehi is a different place, and that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be 5-acre lots. I like with what that elderly lady was saying, like, you know, it doesn't help my argument. But I think there is a place for half-acre lots and third-acre lots and quarter-acre lots. But I also think all of those are becoming impossible for the general public to even live in and be a part of. And I think, you know, like my kids are gonna live in a townhome. I was fortunate to never live. I lived in a condo for a minute, but I was fortunate to skip the townhome world. I just don't think that's a reality anymore. I think even you know, and you guys are seeing this. It's what you're dealing with. It's what we're pushing for. But we're not just pushing for it to get a unit count. We're pushing for it because that's what people like. There's a need for that. There is, you know, an $800,000, or let's say a $600,000 to $800,000 townhome, like that's a new family, which it even boggles my mind now. And so, just doing half-acre, third-acre, and quarter-acre lots, I just don't think it. I'm not saying it's not a reality; it needs to go somewhere. But when I look at what Saratoga is going to do in creating a commercial zone and the need to buffer that, and then when I look at this piece and think putting 25 5-acre lots, I just don't think this is the right look. Like when Lehi, every city has to say, okay, this is the land we have left. And then for the most part, it's not forever, but once you develop it, that is going to be what it's going to be. And so when I look at this piece, this is not where I would put 5-acre lots in Lehi. This is where I would put, and I'm not saying apartments or your highest density. I understand why there's the TOD zone, but this is a harder zone. This is getting to become a harder type of community to get into communities. Like this is kind of the missing middle because it looks worse to me than it is. And so I guess what I'm saying is even though we're asking for what seems like an astronomical amount of units in relationship to 25, you're also getting 56. So you're also getting 30 acres of open space that is now Lehi's forever. And if you were to do 25 5-acre lots, well, that's not open space. That's people own that land. They control it. Nobody else can go there. You can't build trails. You can't build trailheads. No one else in the community gets to be a part of it. So I guess what I would say is, yes, it seems like we're asking for a lot, but we also want to give a lot. So I feel like if the city wants to be a part of that give and take discussion, we want to go through this process. If it's just hey, this is only allowing 25 5-acre lots, I don't know what they'll do, but it's not viable today to go down that road. So it'll sit undeveloped and wait until there's a time when it makes sense. On this type of a piece, it wouldn't make sense. Not to be like, I know I probably sound like I'm like digging my heels, but I think where we're not is saying, yeah, it's a lot of units, but we also want to give a lot of perpetual land that is now open space forever and look at connecting trails. And I think in that world of amenities, trailheads, open space, what does it look like? I think we're fully open to look at, okay, how do we make this something great for the community? To do that, you've got to have the units.
Sorry, go ahead.
So tonight, this is kind of what you're doing. You want to take our temperatures.
I want to take your temperature.
To see where we're at.
Yeah.
Because obviously we can't, you got to do the zone change to get this.
Yeah,
through.
well,
So,
like if your
but
temperature.
you're just trying to figure out.
Yeah, if your temperature's at a certain place,
Right.
I don't want to waste everybody's time and money.
Yep.
Well, I
Thank
mean,
you.
this
Thank
is
you for that.
this is hardly the body that you want to take the temperature of, right? If you really want to get the temperature, you need to get it to the next level. So.
Which is what's so great about planning staff getting us here.
Yeah.
And why
I mean, if
we
you want to
need-
get us on, then
Yeah.
let's get on. Let's make a negative recommendation and go. Just kidding. I'm not telling us what to do. But I'm just saying, like, the ask is a lot. I appreciate the effort that went in there, right? I actually don't even hate the conceptually some of the pieces that are here. There's so much outside of control. Like, I'm curious, like all those single family homes on 600 West, are those fronting 600 West? Are they fronting inside? Are they, like what? Because they're dual frontage, which we hate. We don't love dual fronted properties.
So
anyway,
yeah, they're all
right?
fronting
So-
inside.
Okay.
And this whole plan could tweak easily with comments and suggestions. I think we've kind of run up with staff to a little bit of a crossroads of like, it's hard to move forward if we had a DRC and when it's like, well, it's really zoned for 25 units, which, sorry, it's not 5 acres, they're 2.5 acres. So we could put 2.5 acre lots across the whole thing. And so when we got to there, it's like, well, we need to really talk about this because I just, I know we're asking a lot, but I don't think that's the right use for this property where it's located and what you're going to end up there. Like, I can't imagine selling 2.5 acre lots and then having a grocery store. I don't know what they're going to do there, but a major grocery store as your neighbor. Like, I don't think that would be good for Lehi residents. And Saratoga is going to do something like that, and I don't know what it is. And so
the city owns the piece to the west, and I guess
they own
north
some
of that.
piece. Yeah, well, part of Lehi City.
Funky little around Waterway Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the city owns that.
The city. What are the plans for the city there?
Just remain native. Yeah, that's actually in the floodplain, and so when we approved Jordan Willows, that's why we have about 100 acres of open space, and we tried to keep development as much as we possibly could out of the floodplain area. That's kind of our overarching policy as a city is if there's natural hazards, let's avoid them. Let's not try and fill and build, modify Mother Nature, just stay out of the path. Same thing with Utah Lake. We have a shoreline protection area. We'd much rather just, if we're going to add density, we'd see it more in our transit areas, downtown. I get Tom's arguments, but I think you could make it even stronger if you said we're going to take this 200 additional units and put it somewhere really meaningful in a TOD or something like that.
So, because my thought that the two little cul-de-sacs that are in the center that break up most of the open space, could it go to the north? Could it go somewhere else? Because it just, to break up that, have this island of a couple of cul-de-sacs, to me is something that I look at that and go, there's got to be, I know you guys spend hours doing
Yeah,
this
no, I
stuff,
think
so.
I think that's the temperature we're trying to gauge is if it was like, hey, we're good with this single family and townhomes and, whether it's a trail connect, whether it's just an open space corridor through there or getting rid of it altogether, I think that's like, oh, okay, we're getting somewhere. Let's continue this discussion. And I agree. It's not just the discussion with you. It is whatever you say, we're going to have to go to council and have this same discussion.
And they're the decision makers.
No, for
right?
sure.
So we can recommend yay or nay, whatever, but really,
everyone's recommendation counts.
But really, for you to get the feedback that you're looking for of, yes, we're asking for this astronomical number. We know it's crazy. And, we were shooting from the hip. Let's see what happens, right? That's what it feels like. Okay, that's what feels like what you're doing. But for you to have the real conversation you need to have, it's not with us.
Yeah.
It's with city council because they can say, hey, you know what? Here's a number that makes more sense. We don't have that authority.
Yeah.
Right?
But as a plan, I guess as the planning commission, I do think you have I think your opinion is valuable of like for this land, what is the long-term highest and best use?
Right. But then we're doing your job. Right, your
Well-
job is to present something that we can vote on. And
Oh,
you
for sure.
presented this, and you're asking us to vote on this.
Yeah, no, I am.
Okay, so
Yes.
we will.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll answer that in a different way, in that my plan would align with the general plan. I think this most recent election cycle, one of the big things that we learned is that everyone's frustrated with traffic and how many people are moving in, how many low density places are being built. And so it just, you've got to keep it around at least close to the 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have a hard time going anywhere north of that.
See, now, I'm worried about Saratoga Springs, because if that's heavy commercial, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
What
It's
but you're going to
called,
have.
It's called regional commercial. So heavy commercials to the south.
There we go.
This will
Thank
be.
you.
They want this to be a regional commercial center for Saratoga. And so
that-
that's what's tricky is like
Now you're balancing two
Yeah.
cities against.
And and it's never awesome.
Yeah.
But it's reality of what they're going to do, and UDOT's putting a signal there, and so this is not just hey I hope that the council will give this to us. It really is looking at like, okay, what can we give, what supports that, what works with this commercial, what works with the neighbors, in our opinion.
I'm not
Yeah.
opposed to this property being developed.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. In fact, I'm mostly pro development.
Oh, for sure.
In general, as far as my temperature is concerned. Right.
Yeah.
I'm concerned with the quantities, and I don't feel like I have any insight to what would be a better balance number. I feel like personally, I feel 25 is limiting, right?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like there's potential for more here. You can even do large lots on double that, right?
Yeah.
You could do 50 and have large lots and whatnot as single family homes, multifamily, whatever you want to do, right? You've got some land here that is developable, but I don't speak for the council who really makes that
For sure.
decision.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
And I think Mr. Jones over there hit a great point with the recent election.
Yeah.
And I don't think they would be favorable to changing the general plan.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I am, because, people rely on that. And when they move in someplace, and we hear it all the time, I moved in here and thought we were going to have cows in our backyard and the general plan. Like, well, things change.
For sure.
So, but I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there any additional information that we could give you that you think would be helpful?
What you guys want to say? No, I think that's valuable. I think whatever your motion is will be valuable, and then we'll decide to do what. There's different options. Obviously, we'll go to the next meeting, but there's ways to meet with council members otherwise too, and so we can decide what to do.
Okay. Well,
Thanks
thank
so
you for your
much.
time.
Appreciate it.
All right, I'll put forward a motion. Item 4.12, public hearing and consideration of Century Communities request for review for the, I'm going to mess this up, Chu property concept plan. A 219-unit development located at approximately 600 south, 2900 west. Let's see, the motion being denial of the proposed concept plan, with the findings being that the proposed concept is not consistent with Lehi City's development code, and it does not conform to the goals and policies of the general plan, and please include all DRC comments.
We did want to say we were looking into it a little bit more, and since this would have to be a PUD or PRD, it will go to city council. So if you just want to
recommendation of denial.
Please make that change. Thank you.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So
Thank you.
27th as well? 27th with city council. again, I think that's where you're going to have the most fruitful conversation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh, I like the open space, so by the river, keep that river open, that'd be
And the
great.
trail connection.
yeah,
Huh?
that's the biggest
Yeah,
benefit.
those are nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way it sits, it allows Saratoga or Lehi to control that, right?
All right, 4.13.
Right, item 4.13, public hearing and recommendation of Lehigh City's request for development code amendment to Chapter 20 home occupations, adding adult daycare. So, in our home occupation, we already allow child daycare, and it came up just someone asking about doing adult daycare, and so we're just proposing to amend the code to allow adult daycare or child daycare with kind of the same regulations, adding a drop-off circulation plan, annual fire life safety inspection. I think that came from looking into the state code a little bit, and then just eliminating some child daycare things to make it inclusive. So with that, I'll turn it back to the commission for any questions.
Questions for staff?
Is somebody trying to do this?
Yeah, so
Is that
someone
why
did request, and it didn't really fit in to any of the home
Yeah.
occupation requirements, so, yeah.
So is this in preparation for a adult daycare center? I don't even know.
So it'd be a home occupation, so they
Home
would,
occupation.
yeah, so just someone doing it in their house.
So like my aging father, somebody could go in there and spend the day with him kind of thing, or
Or you could drop them off to
yeah,
someone, and they
could drop him
have like
off?
a knitting
Yeah.
group or something.
I could take him somewhere and drop him off?
You would have to pick him up.
I don't, that's not part of the motion.
Most care centers charge $1 a minute after 6 p.m. So.
Well, he's good for it.
Hey, I know your son, so karma.
True.
Careful, careful, careful.
Karma. Okay, thank you. for
This is a public hearing.
You want to say anything?
I'd like to open the public comment, and anybody who would like to speak to this is your time. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Were there any other questions or concerns, comments, or a motion?
I'll make a motion. Item 4.13, public hearing and recommendation of Lehi City's request for a development code amendment to Chapter 20 home occupations, adding adult daycare. I move that we give a positive recommendation to City Council with the finding that the proposed development code amendment is in conformance with the purposes, intent, and provisions of the general plan and its various elements. Please, there's no DRC comments, are there? Yeah, include DRC comments. That's it. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. How do we feel, Commission, about pushing the thing to the work session? The bylaws.
Yeah.
You guys okay with that?
What I'd recommend is that you accept the bylaws, make a motion to accept the bylaws with the understanding that we'll have a training.
What if you snuck something in there? We want to.
They were in the packets.
You've had your chance to
And
read
according
them.
to the bylaws, as members of the commission, you are to know relevant state and local law.
And we could do it at our next regular meeting. There's only 2 items. It's
Let's
a
do that.
smaller meeting.
In my
So
opinion.
we would respectfully
Yes.
ask to postpone it, but do we want to do the acceptance?
Oh, yeah, we could do the acceptance now. And
If you're comfortable, or we can just roll the whole thing.
Let's roll it all.
Okay.
If you're okay
the
with that.
chair has spoken.
I want to give a quick chance to our new commissioner to come up and introduce yourself to us. Please come to the mic. We can't hear
Come on
you.
up.
State name.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is this city business?
Technically,
Yes, this is
right?
city
Hi guys, I'm
business.
Polo. This was a really long meeting. So this is the first one. So yeah, hopefully next one is only 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Sure you guys
Jacob was supposed to be here, it would have been, but.
I have
Any
to.
questions for public comments?
Well, I have one comment. These chairs are a lot better than those chairs.
Dude, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm wiggling the whole time.
Yeah, these chairs.
Like,
Those
it
chairs
was
are
rough,
terrible. That's why Brent left,
That makes sense.
and that's why he will
After
not come
10
back.
years.
Okay,
He's
here's
done.
a question I got.
He's
If
done.
I'm not voting, do I got to be here?
No.
How does that work?
Not technically.
No, you're not required to attend. You can
Yeah.
if you want to stay plugged in, but you're not required to. So hopefully, and this is probably really good. We'll use this
We'll
as
go
our
over
city
Quick little
visit.
training
Yeah,
moment.
and like how does
Yeah.
alternates work? So I know we have training next week, but I guess.
Yeah, we got our new commissioners
Well, that's part of the
coming
bylaws.
in. Yeah. But yeah, if one of the regular members is absent, the goal is that you would let us know. Now, if you're sick the day of, then there's nothing you can do to control that. We'll try and get a hold of one of the alternates, but as much advance notice as we can give, they'll give you notice. Either whoever's going to be absent or staff will let you know, hey, we're down one regular commissioner or two. Can you please both attend? But if all 5 regular members are here, you're not
Okay.
expected or required to attend.
If
So,
we don't hear from you,
Yep.
assume it's optional.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yep. So technically, you didn't need to be here. Sorry, we should.
Yourself.
I'm Lindsay.
You're
Sorry,
aware.
I'm the one running in the door at 6:58 p.m. after shoving chicken nuggets in my mouth today. On the way over, don't tell him back there. Yeah, I'm excited to be a part of this too. I've served with Nicole on the park tax grant review. We need a shorter name for that. Committee. I'm still going to be serving as the chair, at least for this year. Just because we moved up the timeline for those applications to come through. Council wanted our recommendations before they approved the budget. But we've just committed not to schedule any of those meetings on a Thursday night. So I think it should be okay, at least for this year, and then we'll see how I feel afterwards, and I might step back into just a committee member role or step down and let somebody else take over. But I think just being an alternate I'm excited. It's gonna be fun.
What parts of Lehi do you guys live in?
I'm up in Canyon Hill, so on Traverse Mountain. My house backs up to, my actual house backs up to the D.R. Horton development. So when I said that is literally my life right now, yeah. Things change from when you buy your house, and, it's okay. But I think it was our community that got the ESA set in stone.
Up there.
Like, started that process, yeah. Because the Micron plan that was originally, that we had or that was approved when we bought, had it environmentally sensitive, but then we learned that wasn't like actually an official designation. That was something that they had put on. So,
Yeah.
for better or for worse, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Some people like it, some don't. So, yeah.
Paul, you live where?
By the skate park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Not too bad.
Well, welcome. We're excited.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Anything else tonight?
Well, actually,
we end the meeting.
I was hoping for a funny
We've got
I
3
mean,
more
if
minutes.
Handles closes, that's you've been here too long. Like that's all I'm saying.
Motion to adjourn.
City business. Do you got anything?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Did we decide on the bylaws?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Getting too sleepy. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey.
Yep.
Yep.
Is that teams or in person?
In person. If you want, we can do teams.
Well done. Nice job.
That's a good one.
No, it was.
You'd rather, if
Bo?
it's more convenient, just tell us.
Controversial ones. I'm like,
You know,
Bo
the
just
first
jumped.
couple in the year usually.
We'll have a PowerPoint. We can just share the screen.